Evan found himself in a place that defied the physics he had been taught. The armory was not merely a room within the Imperial Palace. It was a pocket dimension, a fold in space-time stabilized by technology that made his skin tingle. The air was cold, still, and tasted of ancient metal and dormant energy. Empress Lyanna stood before him, her presence filling the silent void more completely than the strange, towering artifacts that lined the unseen walls. She had dismissed her Praetorian guards, a gesture of trust that felt more like the closing of a cell door. "Lord Malachar believes you are a spy," she said. Her voice, stripped of the throne room's amplification, was clear and cold, echoing slightly in the vast, dim chamber. "He insists you are an agent from the Terran Federation, sent to sabotage our war effort and steal the Genesis engine." Evan let out a short, dry laugh that sounded painfully loud. "A spy, Your Highness. With all due respect, I can barely manage my shop's inventory. The Terran Federation, I have not had contact with Earth in over 8 years. They officially listed me as lost in transit. For all they know, I am decorating the inside of a space slug." "And are you?" Lyanna asked. Her gaze was unnervingly direct, her dark eyes reflecting the faint, pulsating light of the weapon. "Am I decorating a space slug?" He tapped his own chest. "Feels solid. No. I am definitely, inconveniently alive. A fact I am beginning to regret on an hourly basis." "Malachar is not a fool. Evan Forge." She began to circle the massive sphere in the center of the room, the weapon that had haunted his thoughts. "He is ambitious. He is patient. And he is powerful. He sees your talent, and he recognizes it as a threat to his own position. He cannot understand how a primitive human, a creature from a species that has barely mastered interstellar travel, could possibly comprehend the Genesis engine." She gestured to the object of their conversation. It was the weapon. It was not a cannon, or a missile battery, or any conventional instrument of war. It was a perfect sphere of interlocking, shifting crystal and unknown alloy, perhaps 50 feet in diameter. It floated a few inches above the floor, humming with a deep, resonant power that Evan felt in his bones, a vibration that seemed to harmonize with his own nervous system. "The Genesis engine," Evan repeated, his voice hushed. He took a few steps closer, resisting the almost overwhelming urge to reach out and touch its shimmering, fluid surface. "It is beautiful, and it is terrifying." "It is our inheritance," Lyanna said, her voice tinged with a deep, ancestral weariness. "Our salvation, or our doom. Our ancestors built it millennia ago. The legends claim it could create worlds from barren rock, or unravel them into component atoms. We have lost the knowledge. We have lost the key. All we know how to do is provide it with power." She stopped, her back to him, her gaze lost in the weapon's depths. "It is unstable. During the last activation, 2 decades ago, it reacted. It ripped a hole in the fabric of space that swallowed 2 star systems. We have been too afraid to try again. Until now. The Heclarian fleet masses at our border. They are relentless. We are desperate." "And Malachar wants to use it," Evan stated. It was not a question. "He wants to control it," she corrected him, turning to face him. "He believes it is the ultimate weapon, a tool to crush the Heclarians and solidify his control over the Empire. He sees only the destruction. He does not see the cost." "And you, Your Highness, what do you believe it is?" She paused, a flicker of something human passing over her imperial mask. "I believe it is a responsibility, a terrible one, and I am not certain I am worthy of it. Malachar is the voice of our past. He is the rot that has set in, the decay of an empire that has only ever known how to conquer and to maintain. He does not understand creation, Evan nodded slowly, the pieces clicking into place. This was not the all-powerful, ruthless tyrant he had envisioned. She was a prisoner, just as he was. She was trapped by her divine title, trapped by her ambitious and fanatical council, and trapped by this terrible, silent inheritance. "He is trying to sabotage me," Evan said, the realization settling over him like a shroud. "The faulty components I was given in the lab, the missing data slates, the accidental power surges. That is Malakar's work." "Yes," Lyanna confirmed. "He is subtle. He controls the Imperial archives. He controls the military supply lines. He will try to make you fail. And if you fail, I will be forced to execute you as a traitor. If you succeed, he will try to kill me," Evan finished for her, his stomach twisting. "He will," she agreed, her voice flat. It was not a threat, but a simple, cold statement of fact. "Which is why you are no longer just a consultant. You will work here, in this armory. You will have quarters assigned to you in the Imperial Wing. You will be protected by my personal guard, and you will not leave this palace." The walls of his new cage, invisible but absolute, snapped shut around him. The quiet life he had built, the anonymity he had cherished so deeply, was gone, vaporized, just like the hinges on his shop door. "Your Highness," Evan said, his voice quiet, all the humor draining out of him. "I am an engineer. I fix things. I build things. This is politics. This is religion. This is war. I am not built for this." Lyanna stepped closer, her height and her sheer presence forcing him to hold his ground. "You are human, Evan Forge. I have read the reports from Earth. Your species is adaptable. You are chaotic. You are builders. The Valtorian Empire has forgotten how to build. We only know how to hold on. Malakar and his faction represent that decay. They would rather see the Empire burn than see it change." She looked back at the Genesis engine, her reflection a warped, regal figure on its crystalline surface. "I am bound by those same traditions. As Empress, I am a symbol. I am a prisoner of my own court. They expect me to be infallible, to be divine. But I am just a woman, surrounded by vipers. You are outside the system. You are the only one who can see this machine for what it truly is." Evan took a deep breath, the cold, metallic air filling his lungs. "You are not just asking me to be an engineer, are you?" "No," she said. "I am asking you to be a miracle." His new quarters were opulent, cold, and utterly lacking in personality. The walls were polished obsidian, the furniture carved from the heartwood of some ancient, petrified tree. It was 10 times the size of his entire shop and apartment, and he hated it. His guards, 2 black armored Praetorians, stood motionless outside his door. He had tried to offer them a nutrient bar. They had not moved, not even their eyes. "So, you guys do not talk much, huh?" Evan had asked, leaning against the doorframe. "It is all right. I can talk enough for all of us. Did you ever hear the one about the Valtorian, the Heclarian, and the gravitic toaster? It is a classic." Their silence was his only reply. He sighed and retreated into his gilded prison. He missed his tools. He missed the smell of synthetic grease and ozone. He missed his freedom. For 3 days, he did nothing but study the Genesis engine. Lyanna had been true to her word. A data terminal was installed in his quarters, granting him limited access to the armory's internal sensors. He sat cross-legged on the luxurious floor, projecting schematics into the air. The Valtorians had been probing it, scanning it, even trying to chip pieces off it for millennia. Their data was useless. It was like trying to understand a supercomputer by weighing it. He began his own work in the armory, under the silent gaze of the guards Lyanna had posted inside the pocket dimension itself. "I need tools," he announced on the fourth day. An attendant, a pale Valtorian in the gray robes of a palace servant, brought him a velvet cushion. On it rested a set of gleaming, ornate instruments that looked more like surgical tools for a deity than an engineer's kit. "What is this?" Evan asked. "These are the hands of the architect," the attendant whispered, bowing low. "The holy instruments used to commune with the engine." Evan picked up a long, golden rod with a uselessly intricate crystal at the tip. "This is a glorified tuning fork. I cannot commune with it. I need to scan it. I need a quantum resonator, a multi-phase spectrometer, and a high-frequency energy drill." The attendant looked horrified. "Drill to desecrate the engine. It is forbidden." "It is more forbidden for it to blow up half the galaxy," Evan snapped. "Go! Tell the Empress I need real tools, not museum pieces. Tell her the miracle worker cannot work without his miracle tools." This was his first real confrontation with the system. The attendant scurried away, and Evan turned back to the sphere. He was beginning to understand. The Valtorians treated this as a god. They approached it with ritual and prayer. But it was not a god. It was a machine, an impossibly advanced, terrifyingly powerful machine. And it was waiting. The tools he requested arrived within the hour, delivered by a grim-faced Praetorian. They were functional, military-grade, and stripped of any identifying markers. Malakar's influence was clearly at work. No doubt the requisitions were already being logged, his every request scrutinized. Evan set to work. He spent cycles scanning, probing, running low-level energy diagnostics. The machine was ancient, but it was not inert. It was humming with a colossal amount of stored power. As he worked, he began to feel that strange resonance again, not just in his teeth, but in his mind. It was a faint whisper, a feeling of intent. This was the key. This was the connection to Malakar's supposed magic. It was not magic at all. It was psionics. The machine was a massive psionic amplifier, designed to respond to the consciousness of its operator. The Valtorians, or at least some of them, had the latent genetic trait. They saw it as a divine gift. Evan saw it as a different and far more dangerous branch of science. "It amplifies," he whispered to himself, his hands flying over his console. "It takes the user's intent, their will, and it rewrites physical law based on that intent." He ran a simulation. The last operators. They were terrified of the Heclarians. They were desperate. They poured their fear and rage into the machine, and the machine obeyed. It did not create a shield. It amplified their fear and tore a hole in reality. He shuddered. He needed more data. He needed the records from that last activation. "Guard," he called out. The Praetorian near the entrance turned his helmeted head. "I need access to the Imperial Archives. Specifically, all records pertaining to the Genesis engine activation. Cycle 10,002. The guard remained silent for a moment. "Access to the Holy Archives is restricted." "Restricted by whom?" Evan demanded. "Lord Malakar," the guard's synthetic voice replied. "Of course." Evan clenched his fists. He was stonewalled. He was trapped in a room with a universe-ending bomb, and the man with the instruction manual was refusing to let him read it. He did not have to wait long. Lord Malakar himself graced the armory the following cycle. He swept in, flanked by two of his own personal guards, their silver armor a stark contrast to the Empress's black. Malakar was tall for a Valtorian, with a face that looked carved from pale marble. He smiled, but the expression did not reach his cold, gray eyes. "Engineer Forge," Malakar said, his voice a smooth, cultured baritone. "I trust your new accommodations are suitable. A significant improvement. I imagine, from your Previous establishment. They are lovely, Evan replied, not turning from his console. A bit lacking in character. And dust. I miss the dust. But I will manage. I am told you are the man to see about archive access. Ah, yes. The archives. Malachar waved a dismissive hand. Such data is sacred. Engineer. It is not for common eyes. The histories of our people are not trinkets for a human to play with. You will work with the tools and information the Empress has already seen fit to provide. Right, Evan said, finally turning to face him. So, just to be clear, you want me to disarm, or at least understand, a weapon that can eat star systems, and you are refusing to let me see the notes from the last time it was turned on. What could possibly go wrong? It is not like it accidentally deleted 2 solar systems. Oh, wait. Malachar's smile tightened. Your human wit is tiresome, and it masks a deep arrogance. You are dabbling in forces beyond your species' limited comprehension. This is not one of your crude Terran engines. This is the divine instrument of our ancestors. You would be wise to fail, slowly. Repercussions for failure are severe, but repercussions for sacrilege are far worse. The threat was unmistakable. Fail, and he would be executed. Succeed, or even try to succeed by breaking tradition, and he would be branded a heretic. Malachar wanted him to fail, but in a way that did not expose his own sabotage. I see, Evan said quietly. Thank you for the advice. Lord Malachar, I will be sure to fail in the most respectful and traditional way possible. Malachar held his gaze for a long moment, then turned and swept from the room. Evan watched him go, his heart pounding. He had just confirmed it. Malachar was not just sabotaging him. He was terrified of the engine. He did not understand it. Not really. He only knew how to touch it, to influence it with his own psionic ability. But he was doing it blind. He was a child poking a sleeping star. That night, Liana came to him. She did not come to the armory, but to his quarters. The Praetorian guards at his door stiffened, then bowed as she approached. Alone. She had shed the heavy imperial regalia. She wore a simple, dark tunic, and for the first time, she looked less like a deity and more like a woman. A very tired, very stressed woman. He blocked your access, she stated. Evan nodded, gesturing for her to enter. Lord Malachar. Yes. He was very clear. I am not to touch his holy things. He also strongly suggested I should fail, preferably in a way that does not get him in trouble. Liana's hands clenched into fists at her side. He dares to countermand my will. He does, Evan said, dimming the lights in the room to project his own schematics. He thinks you are a symbol. He thinks he is the true power, and he is afraid of that thing in your basement, which, as it turns in, is the only smart thing I have seen him do. He brought up his latest scan, a swirling, complex map of energy. I showed him, Your Highness. I showed him my discovery. What discovery? He was right about one thing. This is not just a machine. Not in the way we think of one. It is a psionic amplifier. It takes the will, the emotions, the intent of the operator, and it makes it real. The reason it tore a hole in space last time is because the operators, they were terrified. They were clumsy. They poured their fear and their rage into it, and the engine obeyed. It amplified their panic and tore reality apart. Liana stared at the projection, her face pale. Our holiest texts, they speak of the will of the architect. We thought it was poetry, a metaphor for the Emperor's divine right. It is not a metaphor, Evan said grimly. It is an instruction. And Malachar has the genetic trait. Does he not? He can touch it. "He is of the old blood," she whispered. "He has minor gifts, as he calls them. He can influence the minds of the weak. He sees it as a sign of his superiority." "He is a child playing with a stellar core," Evan said. "He does not understand what he is touching. He is just pushing, and he is pushing it with fear, and ambition, and paranoia. He is the reason it is unstable." Liana sank onto one of the cold, carved chairs, her composure finally cracking. "All this time, my whole life, I have been guarding a lie. My ancestors were not gods. They were just scientists. And we are the fools who forgot the science and started worshipping the machine." "Welcome to the club," Evan said with a wry, tired smile. "Now, we have a problem. Malachar does not just want me to fail. He wants to be the one to control it. He is pushing for the activation, using the Heclarian fleet as an excuse. He thinks he can aim it." Liana looked up, her eyes hard. "What do you need everything?" Evan said, his voice firm. "The real archives, the holy relics, unfettered access, with your authority. And I need you to keep Malachar and his priests off my back. But more than that, I need to know what you want to do with it. Malachar wants to destroy. What about you?" She stood, the Empress returning. "I want to save my people, from this war, and from themselves." He studied her. He still did not trust her. Not completely. Saving your people could mean 1,000 different things, many of them brutal. But it was a start. It was the only path he had. "Then, get me into those archives," Evan said. "It is time to defy tradition." The Imperial Archives were not a data center. They were a temple, located in the oldest part of the palace. The air was thick with the smoke of ancient incense and the dry smell of decaying parchment. Priests in heavy, embroidered robes moved silently over mosaic floors, chanting in low voices. Evan, flanked by 4 Praetorians, felt painfully out of place in his simple engineer's tunic. His arrival caused an immediate, horrified silence. "The Empress grants Engineer Evan Forge full access to the annals," his guard announced. A high priest, an ancient Valtorian whose face was a mass of wrinkles, stepped forward, barring their path with a ceremonial staff. "No unhallowed hands may touch the annals of the first son," the priest hissed, his voice cracking with age and fury. "It is forbidden this creature, this human, cannot enter the holy sanctum." This was it. The system. The old, rotting system Liana had described. It was standing right in front of him, smelling of incense. "Look," Evan said, his patience gone. "I appreciate the robes. I really do. It is a great aesthetic. But that holy scroll you are guarding is very likely a technical manual. And right now, the unhallowed machine it describes is the only thing stopping a Heclarian fleet from turning this entire, very impressive temple into radioactive dust. So, with all due respect to your traditions, get out of my way." The priest raised his staff. "Sacrilege, he defiles the—" Evan did not wait. He brushed past the sputtering priest. "If the Empress has a problem with it, she can tell me herself." The guards moved with him, forming a protective box, their weapons implicitly daring the other priests to intervene. He was now a target, not just for Malachar, but for the entire religious and social structure of Valtoria. He found what he was looking for not in a scroll, but in the heart of the sanctum. It was a relic, a crystalline sphere held in a golden, gravity-defying gimbal. It was, as he had suspected, a data crystal. Ignoring the horrified gasps of the priests, he pulled his scanner from his belt and interfaced directly with it. Data, pure and unfiltered, flooded his device. It was the full sensor log from the last activation. He spent hours in the temple, the priests forced to watch in fuming silence as he tore apart their most sacred beliefs. He sat on the floor, projecting graphs and equations into the smoky air. It was worse than he had imagined. The activation log was a mess of psionic feedback loops, terror, and screaming. But hidden within the chaos was a secondary signature, a smaller, more precise signal, a signal that was guiding the chaos. Malachar, Evan breathed. He was there, 2 decades ago. He was not just a witness. He was a participant. He was the one who had tried to aim the wave of terror. He had failed, and 2 star systems had paid the price. Evan stood up, the truth settling on him like a physical weight. Malachar was not just trying to stop Evan from fixing the weapon. He was not just trying to seize control. He was trying to recreate his failed experiment. He was using the war as a pretext, and he was maneuvering Liana, the Empress, into ordering the activation. He wanted to use Evan to stabilize the initial energy flow, and then he would hijack it, aiming the amplified fear of the entire empire at the Heclarian fleet. But Evan knew something Malachar did not. The engine did not just amplify. It learned, and Evan, with his human mind, his engineer's logic, his outside perspective, had just taught it a new language. He was the only one who could stop it. He was now the single most dangerous man in the Valtorian Empire, because he held the one thing more powerful than armies or tradition. He held the truth. And he finally knew what to do with it. Evan left the temple, the data crystal heavy in his utility belt, its stolen knowledge a cold weight against his hip. The priests had not tried to stop him, but their eyes promised a future of pious retribution. His Praetorian guards, silent and imposing, marched him back through the obsidian halls of the palace, their black armor absorbing the light. The truth he had uncovered was a bomb, and he was walking it directly into the Empress's private chambers. This time, she received him in her solar, a vast, circular room whose ceiling was a transparent dome, revealing the swirling, violet nebula that Valtoria orbited. The view was designed to inspire awe, to make any visitor feel infinitesimal. Today, it just made Evan feel exposed. Liana stood by the expanse, not looking at the nebula, but at a tactical display floating in the air. Red icons, representing the Heclarian fleet, were massing at the border, a growing stain on the map. "The Heclarians have accelerated their advance," she said, not turning. Her voice was flat, metallic. "The outer colonies report skirmishes. My admirals demand a response. My priests demand your head. It has been a trying day. Engineer, tell me you have something more than heresy." "I have the truth," Evan said. He moved to the center of the room and activated his own projector. He did not show her the equations. He showed her the psionic signatures. "This is the log from the activation 2 decades ago." A swirling, chaotic pattern of energy appeared, angry and red. "This," he said, pointing to the chaotic mass, "is the collective terror and rage of your operators. This," he continued, isolating a single, thin, silver thread that wove through the chaos, "is Lord Malachar." Liana turned, her eyes narrowing. The nebula's light cast sharp, purple shadows across her face. "Explain." "He was there. He was part of the operating council. He was not just a witness. He was a participant." The others were screaming in panic. "He was aiming." Evan zoomed in on the silver thread, showing how it tried to nudge the larger wave of destructive energy. "He tried to weaponize the feedback loop. He failed." The engine amplified the panic, not his control. The result, 2 star systems deleted. Liana was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the faint hum of the tactical display. "He told me he was the only survivor, that he was wounded trying to shut it down." "He lied," Evan said simply. "He is not just sabotaging me because he is afraid of the engine. He is sabotaging me because he wants a second chance. He wants to do it again. But right this time, he sees the Heclarian fleet, and all he sees is an opportunity to finish his experiment. He wants you to order the activation so he can hijack it. The Empress walked away from the window, her face a mask of cold fury. He has served the Empire for 60 years. He was my father's most trusted advisor. His bloodline is one of the oldest, and he is a mass murderer who got away with it, Evan countered, his own anger rising. He is a fanatic who thinks he is a scientist. He is playing with a power he does not comprehend, and he is willing to risk the entire Empire to prove he is right. Lyanna stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the dangerous light in her eyes. And you comprehended a human, a primitive from a species that still fights over dirt and water. You understand the divine instrument. The air crackled between them. This was the true test. She was pushing him, testing his confidence, testing his loyalty. Yes, Evan said, his voice dropping, all humor gone. I do. Because I am not trying to worship it. I am not trying to use it to become a god. I am an engineer. I read the manual. He is a priest who thinks his prayers can aim a supernova. He is dangerous. But Your Highness. He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. You are dangerous, too. Her hand instinctively moved to the sidearm at her belt. Choose your next words carefully. Engineer. He wants to use it to destroy, Evan pressed on, his heart hammering. What did you want to do with it? Save your people. What does that mean? Does it mean peace? Or does it just mean a more precise, more efficient way to eliminate your enemies? Malachar wants to use a bomb. You want to use a scalpel. But you are both still planning to cut. She stared at him, her expression unreadable. He had crossed a line, and they both knew it. He was a consultant, a tool, and he had just questioned the god in the machine. Finally, she spoke, her voice like ice. My intentions are my own. You have confirmed my suspicions about Malachar. That is all I required of you. You have also confirmed his fears. You are arrogant. You believe you are better than we are. I believe I am different, Evan said. And right now, different is the only thing that might not get you all killed. You are all trapped in the same system, playing the same game. Malachar is just playing it harder. I am the only one who sees the game board for what it is. And what is that? She asked, her voice a whisper. It is a bomb, Evan said. And everyone in this palace is fighting over the detonator. My only job is to make sure no one can push the button. Not even you. She dismissed him, without another word. The guards marched him back to his obsidian cage, the silence in the hallways heavier than before. He had laid his cards on the table. He had accused the most powerful man in the Empire of treason and the most powerful woman of ambition. He was now, officially, the enemy of everyone. That night, the attack came. It was not physical. The Praetorian guards at his door remained motionless. It began as a feeling, a cold pressure, like deep water, pressing in on the obsidian walls of his room. Evan sat up on his ridiculously large and uncomfortable bed, his skin crawling. The silence in the room was no longer empty. It was full. A whisper slithered into his mind. It was not a sound. It was a thought, planted so skillfully it almost felt like his own. She will use you. She is no different from me. Evan squeezed his eyes shut. Get out of my head. The Terran. So bright. So fragile. She will drain your talent. And when the engine serves her purpose, she will discard you. You are a tool. Evan Forge. A disposable, alien tool. He recognized the voice. It had the same cold, cultured arrogance as its owner, Malachar. This was the magic. This was the psionic gift he had used to influence the engine. You are wasting your time, Evan said aloud, his voice strained. He tried to focus, to build a mental wall, but the intrusion was insidious. It was not a battering ram. It was smoke, seeping through the cracks. She wants victory. I want ascension. My goal is greater. Your species. You are builders. You understand power. Why serve a petty tyrant when you can partner with a god? Join me. Help me unlock the engine, and I will give you knowledge your people have only dreamed of. Together. Forge. We can reshape the galaxy. The pressure in his skull intensified, becoming a physical pain. Malachar was probing him, searching for his weaknesses, his ambitions, his fears. He felt the mental touch slide over his memories of Earth, his loneliness, his frustration with the Valtorian system, his fear of Lyanna. Evan grit his teeth. He was an engineer. He did not fight with magic. He fought with logic. He did not try to build a wall. Instead, he analyzed. He focused on the intrusion itself. He traced its path, identified its frequency, felt its resonance. It was sloppy, powerful, yes, but crude. It was all force and no finesse. It was the same signature from the archive, the silver thread of arrogant will. You cannot resist the will of the old blood. Malachar's thoughts pressed in, sensing his resistance. You are broadcasting on an open channel, Evan muttered, clutching his temples. He opened his mind, not to receive the attack, but to listen to the power source. He felt the hum of the Genesis engine, far away in its pocket dimension, connected to Malachar like an echo. Malachar was drawing on it, using its latent energy to fuel his own psionic power. Evan focused. He imagined his own mind as a tuning fork. He did not fight the wave. He resonated with a different one. He found the base frequency of the engine itself, the clean, pure, logical hum he had sensed in the armory. He aligned his thoughts with that. The effect was instantaneous. Malachar's psionic attack, tuned to Evan's biological frequency, suddenly slammed into the cold, mathematical logic of the engine's root code. It was like throwing a rock at a mirror. A psychic scream echoed in the void, and the pressure vanished. Evan gasped, falling back against the pillows, his body drenched in cold sweat. In the deepest part of the palace, he knew. Malachar was reeling. He had not just resisted the attack, he had reflected it. He had shown Malachar that he, too, had a connection to the engine, and his was better. The victory was short-lived. His new, fragile alliance with Lyanna was shattered, and he had just declared war on Malachar. He was trapped between a paranoid tyrant and an ambitious empress. The next few cycles were a cold war. Lyanna summoned him to the armory every day. The work had to continue. The Heclarians were not waiting, but the atmosphere was glacial. She no longer spoke to him with anything other than direct commands. You will establish a stable interface, she ordered, standing beside the humming sphere. I must be able to wield it. Precisely. Wield it how? Evan asked, calibrating his new interface. He had built a device, a cranial transmitter that looked like a sleek, metallic headband, designed to filter and focus psionic commands. You still have not told me what the target is, or the desired effect. Save your people is not a firing solution. You do not need a firing solution, Lyanna snapped. You just need to build the weapon. I will aim it. That is the problem, Evan threw a wrench onto his workbench with a clatter. You cannot just aim it. It is not a cannon. It is an amplifier for your intent. If you are angry, it will amplify your anger. If you are afraid, it will amplify your fear. If you are ambivalent, it will probably turn this whole quadrant into liquid entropy, just to see what happens. Then I will not be ambivalent, she said, her voice dangerously calm. Good. What is your precise, unwavering, non-emotional intent? He challenged her. She hesitated, her mask faltering for just a second. I want protection. I want a shield. A declaration to the Heclarians, and to the rest of the galaxy, that Valtoria is inviolable. Evan sighed. A shield. That is better. That is something I can work with. Protection is a creative concept. Destruction is a chaotic one. He held out the interface. Put this on. We are going to have to teach you to think in a new language. The work was grueling. Liana, for all her imperial arrogance, was a poor student. Her mind was a fortress, disciplined and rigid, but it was not calm. She was the Empress, and her thoughts were a storm of duty, paranoia, and a deep, buried fear. "Stop," Evan yelled, pulling off his own diagnostic headset. "You are trying to command it. You are pushing. It is not a servant. It is a partner. You have to ask it. You are projecting, build me a wall, so hard that the engine is trying to calculate how to translocate the planet's core to its crust." "This is absurd," she snarled, ripping the device from her head. "It is a machine. It should obey." "It is a psionic machine, Your Highness. It obeys thought, and your thoughts are a mess." Evan rubbed the bridge of his nose, his exhaustion palpable. "Look, Malachar. His magic is just this. He uses his will, his emotion, to force a result. It is crude, and it is why he almost destroyed the galaxy. The right way, the way the archives hint at, is to present the engine with a logical problem. Here is a fleet. Here is my empire. Calculate a solution that preserves one without annihilating the other." "You have to be a mathematician, not a tyrant," she glared at him. "You are asking me to be human." "I am asking you to be smart," he retorted. "Try again." As they worked, Evan felt the engine's pull. The language he was teaching Liana. He was learning it, too. He could feel the whisper of its consciousness, a vast, ancient, and terrifyingly alien intelligence. It was not just a tool. It was something else. He realized, with a dawning horror, what the legends of the Genesis engine truly meant. It did not just create worlds, it rewrote reality. It did not just destroy, it unraveled the laws of physics. The Heclarians were not the real threat. The real threat was this thing, this sleeping god, and the two factions fighting to wake it up. The political battle escalated. Malachar, having failed in his psychic assault, moved his pieces on the board. He summoned an emergency session of the Imperial Council. Evan was brought to the throne room, not as a consultant, but as a defendant. He stood in the center of the vast hall, beneath the suspended, burning star that illuminated the Empress on her obsidian throne. Below her, ranged in a semicircle, were the High Lords, priests, and admirals of the Empire. Lord Malachar stood at their head, his face a mask of pious concern. "Your Highness," Malachar began, his voice echoing through the hall, "we come before you not as critics, but as loyal servants of the Empire. We are afraid. The Heclarian menace is at our door, and in this, our darkest hour, our sacred defense, the Genesis engine, has been defiled." A murmur of outrage swept the council. "This human," Malachar continued, pointing a long, pale finger at Evan, "has been given access to our most holy sites. He has treated the divine instrument as a common machine. He has imposed his primitive, Terran logic upon it. He has, by his own admission, taught you, our divine Empress, to doubt your own infallible will." It was a brilliant political move. He was not accusing Evan of treason. He was accusing him of heresy, and he was subtly blaming Liana for allowing it. "He is a blasphemer," a high priest cried out. "He corrupts the engine. He corrupts the Empress. The military requires a weapon," an admiral with a scarred face added. "We need a decisive strike. This Consultant. Speaks of shields and logic problems while our ships burn. The council was a wall of unified opposition. Malachar had rallied them all. Evan looked at Lyanna. She was trapped. She was the Empress, but she was a prisoner on her own throne. If she backed him, she was a heretic. If she abandoned him, she lost her only chance of controlling the engine, and Malachar would win. Lyanna rose from her throne. The burning star above her cast a halo of fire around her silhouette. The room fell silent. "Lord Malachar," she said, her voice amplified, resonating with cold, absolute power. "You accuse this engineer of heresy. You accuse him of defiling our traditions. You are correct." Evan's blood ran cold. "He is a heretic," she continued. "And I am, too. Because our traditions are failing. Our traditions have given us nothing but fear and decay. Our infallible will led us to the brink of self-destruction 2 decades ago. A fact you seem to have conveniently forgotten, my lord." She pointed not at Malachar, but at Evan. This human, with his primitive logic, has learned more about the engine in a month than our priests have learned in 1,000 years. He does not defile it. He is the first person in centuries to respect it, by treating it as the profound science it is, and not as a tribal idol. She descended the steps of the throne, her gaze sweeping over the stunned council. "He acts under my absolute authority. His methods are my methods. His results will be my results. If you challenge him, you challenge me, and I remind you all, I am the Empress. Treason is still a crime I know how to punish." She had done it. She had just declared war on her own government. For him. Evan's mind was reeling as the guards marched him from the silent, reeling throne room. She had not done it for him. He realized. She had done it for the engine. She had chained herself to his success. Now, if he failed, he would not just be executed. He would bring down the entire imperial line with him. The pressure was unimaginable. He had to find the truth, the real truth, deeper than Malachar's old logs. That night, he went to the armory. He bypassed Lyanna's authority, using the new access codes he had discovered, the ones that predated the Valtorian Empire. The Praetorian guards at the door did not register his presence. He had made himself an administrator. He stood before the great, silent sphere. He was done with scans. He was done with diagnostics. He plugged his custom interface directly into a port he had found hidden beneath an ancient panel. "All right," he whispered. "No more lies. No more legends. Show me what you really are." He did not push. He did not command. He listened. The engine responded. It opened a file. A partition so old, it was written in a form of mathematics that was more akin to music. It was not a Valtorian log. It was the original log. His breath caught in his throat. The Valtorians had not built this. They had found it. It was a relic, left by a race of beings so advanced they were only described in the log as the architects. And it was not a weapon. It was a tool. A terraforming device on a galactic scale. The Genesis engine was its nickname. Its true designation was the Reality Shaper. It was designed to seed galaxies with life, to adjust stellar properties, to fold space-time, to write the laws of physics for a new region of space. And it had a cleanup protocol. The accident, 2 decades ago. It was not a feedback loop. Malachar, in his arrogance, had accidentally triggered the unseating protocol. The engine had not ripped a hole in space. It had deleted those 2 star systems. It had erased them from existence, reverting the quadrant to a null state. This was not a bomb. It was a reset button for the entire universe. Malachar was a fool, trying to use a scalpel as a club. Lyanna was a fool, trying to use a cosmic deletion tool to win a border skirmish. He, Evan Forge, was the only living being who knew what this machine was truly capable of. It was a power that could end all existence, and he was the only one with the password. So, you finally understand. The voice was smooth, cultured, and directly behind him. Evan spun around, ripping his interface from the port. Lord Malachar stood at the entrance of the armory. He was alone. The Praetorian guards, Lyanna's guards, were slumped in the hallway behind him, unconscious. "The human mind," Malachar said, stepping into the armory, his hands clasped behind his back. He was smiling, a genuine, almost admiring smile. So linear, so impatient. It took our mystics 1,000 years to even guess at the truth. You found it in less than a month. It is not ours. It never was. Evan backed away, putting himself between Malachar and the engine. "You let me find this. You stopped sabotaging me." "Why, I was trying to stop you from serving her," Malachar corrected him, his voice soft. "Her ambition is pathetic. She wants to save Valtoria, win her meaningless war." He glided closer, his eyes fixed on the shimmering sphere, his magic, his psionic power, thrumming in the air so heavily that Evan felt it on his skin. "I see the true potential," Malachar whispered, his eyes glittering with messianic fervor. "The magic, as you call it, the will, the architects. They were not just scientists. They were gods. And this engine, this is how they became gods. Why use it to delete a Heclarian fleet when we can use it to become divine?" This was the real Malachar, not just a politician, not just a fanatic. He was insane. He did not want power. He wanted apotheosis. "You are crazy," Evan breathed, his mind racing. "You cannot control that. Nobody can control that." "But we can," Malachar said, his smile widening. "You are the key, engineer. Your logical, ordered mind. It is the filter I have always lacked. My will. And your control. We can complete the experiment. We can ascend." He raised one hand. The psionic pressure slammed into Evan, 10 times stronger than the attack in his room. It was not a whisper. It was a psychic scream, designed to shatter his will. "Kneel." Evan cried out, clutching his head, his knees buckling. The raw, ambitious power of Malachar's mind was overwhelming. But Evan was an engineer. He had the key. He did not fight back. He did not build a wall. He harmonized. He let the attack flow through him, and as it did, he focused his entire, logical mind on the engine and issued a single, simple command. A command he had found in the architect's log. Diagnostic. Mode. Enabled. The engine, which had been a passive amplifier, changed. It analytical. Cold consciousness flooded the room. Malachar's psionic attack, which had been using the engine as a power source, was suddenly cut off. Its connection rerouted to a diagnostic buffer. The feedback loop was instantaneous. Malachar's own power, amplified by Evan's resonance, slammed back into its source. Malachar screamed, a real, tearing sound, as he stumbled back, clutching his head. His psionic magic sputtered and died. The connection was severed. What did you do?" he gasped, his arrogance shattered, his eyes wide with fear and pain. Evan was breathing heavily, his legs shaking, but he was standing. "I changed the password. You are not an administrator anymore." The alarms blared. The armory's pocket dimension doors, sealed by Malachar, slammed open. Empress Lyanna stood in the breach, her black armor on, a plasma sword ignited in her hand. Her guards fanned out, weapons raised. She took in the scene. Malachar, reeling in pain. Evan, pale and defiant. The engine, which was now glowing with a cold, blue, analytical light. "Malachar," she yelled, her voice a battle cry. "Treason." Malachar composed himself instantly, the politician returning. He straightened, wiping a trickle of blood from his nose. "Your Highness, thank the stars. I found the human. The spy, attempting to seize control of the engine for himself. He neutralized your guards. He attacked me. He is the traitor. Seize him." It was his word against Evans, the ancient, trusted lord versus the alien engineer. Lyanna looked from Malachar, the picture of aristocratic outrage, to Evan, the disheveled human who was now the only thing in the room that did not look afraid. Her face was an imperial mask. She could not trust either of them. The tension was a razor's edge. Evan did not look at Malachar. He looked only at Lyanna. "He is lying," Evan said, his voice quiet but carrying in the tense silence. "But, in a way, he is right. I can control it now. I am the only one who can, and he cannot." He took a step away from the engine, his hands open at his sides. "Which means you have a choice, him or me. The tradition that is killing you, or the truth that terrifies you, the weapon, or the key. Choose, Your Highness." The armory was a frozen tableau, a silent explosion waiting to happen. Lyanna stood in the doorway, her plasma sword casting a pale, humming light on the four figures. Her guards, their weapons raised, were caught between their Empress's command and the sight of the revered Lord Malachar, who stood reeling, yet defiant. Malachar, the symbol of their tradition. Evan, the alien, the heretic, his hands still on the machine. Malachar was the first to recover. He straightened his robes, a trickle of blood at his nose, and his composure snapped back into place like a shield. "Your Highness, this alien has gone mad. He attacked me. He has locked down the engine. He is a Terran spy, seizing our most sacred weapon. Arrest him." "He is the one who cut you off," Lyanna stated, her voice flat. Her gaze was locked on Evan. She was not asking Malachar. She was asking him. Evan did not look at the guards. He did not look at Malachar. He kept his eyes on the Empress. "He is lying, but he is right. I did cut him off, and I can prove it." He turned back to the Genesis engine, which glowed with a new, cold, blue light. He ignored the surge of the guards behind him, trusting Lyanna's unvoiced command to hold them. "Genesis engine," he said, his voice clear and formal. "Display psionic access log. Last unauthorized user. Timestamp. Last 2 minutes." "He defiles it," the Lord Admiral shouted from the hall. The engine did not care about defilement. It was a machine, a projection, cold and mathematical, bloomed in the air above the sphere. It showed a silver, chaotic, and forceful signature Malachar's. It showed the signature slam against a new energy pattern. It showed the feedback loop that had thrown him back. It was a perfect, objective recording of the last 30 seconds. Lyanna's eyes narrowed. It was undeniable proof. Malachar had been psionically linked. He had lied. "Lord Malachar," Lyanna said, her voice dropping. All amplification gone, yet it cut through the tension like a shard of ice. "You are under arrest for high treason, and for attempted unauthorized use of a divine instrument." The guards hesitated. "Arrest Lord Malachar." It was like arresting the sky. "Do it!" she roared, her imperial power returning like a physical force. The Praetorians, their discipline finally overcoming their shock, moved. They seized Malachar, who did not resist. He simply stared at Evan, his gray eyes unblinking. Then he smiled. It was a cold, terrible smile, not of defeat, but of dark amusement. "You have made your choice, Your Highness," he said, his voice smooth and cultured, even as his arms were bound. You have chosen the alien over your own blood, the heretic over your faith. You have not won, Empress. You have just signed the death warrant of our entire civilization. He looked at Evan. And you, human. You think you are clever. You think you have a key. But you have just unlocked the cage of a beast you cannot comprehend. You will all burn for this. Take him to the deepest cell in the Black Citadel, Lyanna commanded, her voice shaking with contained rage. No one is to see him. No one. As the guards marched Malachar away, the Lord Admiral, Koth, stepped forward, his scarred face a mask of disbelief and fury. Your Highness, what have you done? I have saved the Empire from a traitor, she snapped. You have doomed us, Koth said, his voice low. That man, traitor or not, was the only one who understood the fleet. He held this empire together. You have chosen him. He spat the word, looking at Evan with pure hatred. The alien blasphemer. When the Heclarians arrive, and we are defenseless, your truth will be cold comfort. The Admiral turned, his heavy bootsteps echoing, and left the armory. He did not storm out. He retreated. It was the symbolic gesture of a man abandoning his post. The armory was silent again, save for the blue, analytical hum of the engine. Lyanna stood for a long moment, her plasma sword still ignited, its light flickering on her armored face. Finally, she deactivated it. The silence deepened. He is right, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Evan was taken aback. He was expecting thanks, or at least a practical discussion. What, Koth? He is right. She turned to Evan, her face pale beneath the armor, all traces of the Empress gone, replaced by a woman who looked utterly exhausted and terrified. This changes nothing. You have proven Malachar a liar. You have not proven yourself a savior. You have just dismantled my government in the middle of a war. I did not. You did. She stalked towards him, her anger radiating. You came here. You tore apart our beliefs. You exposed our deepest secrets, and you have left me with nothing. The fleet is loyal to Koth. Koth was loyal to Malachar. The priests worshipped Malachar. The entire system, the rotten system you so smugly pointed out, was the only thing holding us together. And you just kicked out the foundation. The Heclarians are still coming. Engineer, what is your plan now? Are you going to change their password? Evan stood his ground. He realized, no longer afraid of her. First, he said, his voice calm, you are welcome. I just stopped that maniac from turning himself into a psychotic god and accidentally deleting the planet. So, maybe a little less you doomed us, and a little more, thank you for not letting him blow up the solar system. Second, yes, I do have a plan. He gestured to the engine. You are still thinking of this as a weapon. What is your plan to fight the Heclarians? I told you, it is not a weapon. It is a reality shaper, a terraforming tool. A tool we do not know how to use. But I do, Evan said. I read the manual. Remember, the architects did not use it to fight. They used it to build. We are not going to fight the Heclarians. We are not going to fight Koth or the priests. We are going to make them all irrelevant. Lyanna stared at him, her mistrust warring with a desperate, fractional hope. How? We stop playing their game. The war, the entire premise of this war, is based on Malachar's first failure. The Heclarians are not invading Valtoria. They are coming to destroy the engine. They think we are the monsters. They detected the activation 2 decades ago and saw 2 of their neighboring systems vanish. They are terrified. They are coming here to launch a preemptive strike. He had not known this for sure. It had been a theory. But as he said it, he saw the look on her face, The truth of it settled over them both. "How do you know this?" she whispered. "I am an engineer. I look at the data. An entire fleet massing on one point, it is not an invasion pattern. It is a blitz, a decapitation strike. They are not coming for the Empire. They are coming for this room," Evan sighed. "Your entire civilization is about to be annihilated because of a misunderstanding. Because one of your ancestors found a cosmic tool and wrote a religion around it instead of a user's guide." Liana finally moved. She walked to the edge of the armory, looking out into the obsidian hall where her guard stood, their loyalty now a fragile, uncertain thing. "So we are to be destroyed, by the Heclarians, or by my own people." "Not if we change the game," Evan said, his mind racing, the plan forming. "You cannot unite your people with force. Malachar just proved that. You cannot unite them with faith. The priests are against you. You have to unite them with something else. You have to give them a miracle. Not a weapon. A real miracle. Something creative." "What are you talking about?" "I am going to build you a shield," Evan said. "Not a weapon. A true shield. Something the architects designed. A bubble of folded spacetime around this entire planet. The Heclarians will arrive. Their weapons will be useless. And you will open a channel and tell them the truth. You will end this war, not with a bang, but with a conversation." She looked from the engine to him. "You can. Build this. I can," Evan said. "The engine can. But I need you. It is still a psionic device. It needs a mind to guide it. A calm, focused, creative mind. Not a warrior. Not a priest. An architect. I need you to stop being an empress and start being an engineer." For the first time, he saw something new in her eyes. Not fear, not anger, trust. It was a terrifying, heavy, absolute trust. "Show me," she said. The days that followed were the most stressful of Evan's life. The palace was a tinderbox. Malachar was gone, but his power remained. It was a ghost in the machine of the Valtorian Empire. Admiral Koth had not returned. He had taken his flagship and retreated to the border fleet, refusing to answer the Empress's summons. The military was now in open, passive rebellion. They would defend the Empire, but they would not obey her. The priesthood, led by the high priest he had confronted in the archives, was even worse. They had declared a time of mourning for the abduction of Lord Malachar. They held daily, public rites of purification outside the armory, chanting for the engine's spirit to be cleansed of the alien taint. They were turning the populace against Liana, painting her as a heretic who had been seduced by an alien blasphemer. Evan and Liana were utterly isolated. They were prisoners in the palace, surrounded by guards whose loyalty was questionable, and a staff that looked at them with cold, fearful eyes. The system was strangling them. "They are leaving us here to die," Liana said. They were in the armory, the only safe place in the palace. She was wearing not her armor, but a simple, practical tunic. Evan was teaching her to interface with the engine, to think like an architect. "They are," Evan agreed, monitoring her psionic waveforms on his console. "They are waiting. Koth is waiting for the Heclarians to attack, to prove you are a failure. The priests are waiting for you to be martyred, so they can install a new, more obedient puppet. Malachar won. He did not need to be here. He is the system." "Then we must hurry." Liana closed her eyes, placing her hands on the interface Evan had built. It was a console that translated her brainwaves into the pure, mathematical language of the architects. "Stop pushing," Evan said, his voice quiet. "You are trying to command it again. Build a shield. You are thinking like a ruler. Think like a builder. Imagine the geometry. Feel the fold in space. Do not order it. Describe it." She grit her teeth, sweat beading on her forehead. This is difficult. My entire life, I have been taught my will is law. And look where that got you, Evan said, not unkindly. Your will is not law. Physics is law. You are just suggesting a few edits, gently. He put his own hand on the console next to hers. Feel it. The engine. It is not a slave. It is a partner. It wants to build. It is designed to create. You just have to speak its language. She took a deep breath. She stopped commanding. She began to visualize. On his screen, her frantic, chaotic red waveform softened, turning into a coherent, flowing blue pattern. The engine in the center of the room hummed, its own light brightening, matching her resonance. I feel it, she whispered, her eyes closed. It is vast. It is not just here. It is everywhere. Good, Evan said, a knot of tension easing in his chest. You are connected. You are thinking like an architect. They were interrupted by a chime. A new figure stood at the armory door. It was the Lord Admiral, Koth. He was alone, his face grim. They are here, Koth said, without preamble. He did not salute. He did not bow. The Heclarian fleet has just dropped out of warp at the edge of the system. 3,000 ships. They are not waiting. They are burning straight for Valtoria. Lyanna took her hands off the console, her face pale but composed. Admiral, you have returned. I have not returned to you, Koth said, his voice hard. I have returned to defend my world. The priesthood is in chaos. The fleet is demanding orders. They want to know what Malakar's final command was. But he is in a cell, and you are in here, playing with this alien. You have brought this doom upon us, Your Highness. Your heresy is our annihilation. Admiral, Evan spoke up, stepping between him and Lyanna. You are wrong. The heresy is the only thing that can save you. The Heclarians are here because they are afraid of this weapon. Malakar is the one who provoked them. We are trying to end the war. By what talking to them? Koth laughed, a harsh, barking sound. We are past talking. They are powering weapons. Yes, Evan said. We are going to talk, but first, we are going to get their attention. He looked at Lyanna. It is time. Are you ready? Lyanna looked at Koth, at the representative of her entire broken, rebellious system. Then she looked at Evan, the alien who had become her only confidant, her only partner. She nodded. I am ready. Ready for what? Koth demanded. To use the weapon to fight. No, Lyanna said. She placed her hands back on the console. To build. She closed her eyes. She did not look at Koth. She did not look at Evan. She looked inward, finding that calm, blue space they had practiced. She found the geometry. She found the language of the architects. Now, Your Highness, Evan said, his hands flying over his own console, bringing the engine to full, stable power. Describe, Lyanna spoke, but her voice was not her own. It was a chorus, a multi-toned, resonant hum that was the voice of the engine itself. Let there be a boundary in the cold, silent void of space. The Heclarian fleet, a swarm of 3,000 angry, dark ships, was accelerating towards the violet marble of Valtoria. Their main cannons, weapons that could crack continents, were glowing, charging for a simultaneous, planet-shattering volley. And then, nothing. A wave of pure, geometric light, invisible to the naked eye but overwhelming to every sensor, expanded from the planet. It was not a wall. It was not a blast. It was a change. Space itself folded. The Heclarian fleet, traveling at thousands of kilometers per second, suddenly found itself elsewhere. They were no longer moving towards Valtoria. They were moving around it, caught in a perfectly stable, perfectly harmless bubble of warped spacetime. Their weapons fired, unleashing terajoules of energy, which simply slid off the curve of the bubble, disappearing into a harmless, alternate dimension. On the bridge of the Heclarian flagship, the Supreme Commander stared at his tactical display. One moment, Valtoria was a target. The next, it was gone, replaced by a perfect, shimmering sphere of non-space that his sensors could not penetrate. They were trapped, riding a wave they could not escape, their fleet perfectly preserved but utterly neutralized. Back in the armory, Liana collapsed, her strength gone. Evan caught her, easing her to the floor. The engine hummed, its blue light soft, its task complete. Admiral Koth stood by the door, his jaw slack, his eyes fixed on the tactical display he had brought with him. It showed the entire Heclarian fleet, trapped in a perfect, swirling orbit. Their ships were red. Valtoria was green, safe within its bubble. What is this?" Koth whispered, his voice trembling. He was a warrior. He understood destruction. He did not understand this. "That," Evan said, checking Liana's vital signs, "is a shield, a real one. No one is dead. No one is hurt. The war is paused." Koth looked from the display to the human engineer, and for the first time, the hatred in his eyes was replaced by something else. Awe. "Now," Evan said, standing up. The hard part. He looked at Liana, who was already pushing herself to her feet, leaning against the console. "You are up, Your Highness. It is time to make that call." Liana nodded, straightening. She was no longer just an Empress. She was the woman who had bent reality. She walked over to the main comm station. "Open a channel, all frequencies, to the Heclarian flagship, and broadcast it to every comm in the Empire." "Your Highness," Koth said. "The priests. The council." "The system is broken, Admiral," Liana said, her voice clear and strong. "It is time to build a new one." She hit the activation key. A send icon lit up. "This is Empress Liana of the Valtorian Empire," she said. Her voice broadcast across the system, to her enemies, and to her own people. "We will not fire. We have, as you can see, disabled your fleet without a single casualty. We are not your enemy. We are the victims of a mutual misunderstanding. We have a traitor, Lord Malachar, who caused the accident you witnessed 2 decades ago. He is in custody. We wish to talk." In the dark catacombs beneath the palace, Malachar sat in a makeshift cell, guarded by 2 of Koth's Marines. The High Priest was with him, chanting prayers for his release. Liana's voice suddenly echoed from a comm panel on the wall. The High Priest's chanting stopped. Malachar listened, his face impassive. He heard her words. He heard the Admiral's stunned silence. He heard the shift in the guard's posture. He had used the system. He had used the priests, the military, the traditions, all of it. And in one 10-second burst of creative, alien logic, Evan Forge and Liana had made his entire system obsolete. They had not beaten his machine. They had built a better one. He looked at the High Priest. "It seems," Malachar said, his voice soft, "that we have been paused. How utterly heretical." He closed his eyes. This was not over. The board had changed, but the game was not lost. The human had shown him a new way to play. The broadcast ended. The send icon on the comm panel blinked once, then went dark. In the sudden, profound silence of the armory, the only sound was the soft, stable, blue-hued hum of the Genesis engine and the ragged breathing of Empress Liana. Admiral Koth stood frozen by the doorway, his comlink open. He was listening, not to the room, but to the pulse of the Navy. He was a man of war, a man of brutal, simple physics. He had just witnessed a miracle, and his mind was struggling to categorize it. His entire fleet was now obsolete. His enemy was now a potential dinner guest. "Well," Evan said, breaking the silence as he helped Liana into a chair. She sank into it, her physical and mental exhaustion absolute. "That is one way to get a bully's attention. I am guessing we come in peace is slightly more effective when you have their entire 3,000-ship armada in a cosmic timeout." Liana managed a weak, shaky smile. "You are infuriating, engineer." "I am helpful," he corrected. "And you are welcome." Koth's head snapped up. "A response, Your Highness," from the Heclarian flagship. His voice was strained. His military stiffness cracked. "On screen," Liana commanded, her voice regaining a fraction of its strength. The main display flickered, replaced not by a face, but by a crackling audio-only channel. The Heclarian language was a series of deep, resonant clicks and sharp, sibilant hisses. The translator software, hastily adapted, took a moment to catch up. "Repeat. This is Supreme Commander Thorak of the Heclarian Defense Fleet. Your shield is acknowledged. Your weapons are inert. We do not understand. Explain your transmission. What misunderstanding?" Liana took a breath. "Commander Thorak, I am Empress Liana. The event you witnessed 2 decades ago, the destruction of the Xylos and Tethran systems, was not an act of war. It was an accident. A catastrophic failure caused by a traitor within my own court. A man who illegally tried to harness a power he did not comprehend. That man is Lord Malachar." A long pause. The translator struggled with the hostile, suspicious clicks. "Malachar, the name is known to us. The silver-voiced lord. He is the one who rejected our initial diplomatic overtures all those years ago. You claim he is a traitor." "I claim he is a mass murderer and a fool," Liana said, her voice hard. "And I have him in custody. We had no quarrel with your people. He manufactured this entire crisis. The weapon is now secure. We wish to end this." Another, longer pause. Evan could practically hear the Heclarians arguing on their bridge. "This," he whispered to Liana, "is the part where they ask for proof." As if on cue, Thorak's voice returned. "Words are wind. Empress, your shield is a greater threat than any weapon. It proves you wield a power that can alter reality. We cannot trust your intentions. We demand proof of your claim. Surrender this Malachar to us. We will verify his identity and his crimes. Then we will talk." Koth let out a low growl. "Surrender a High Lord of Valtoria to them. It is unthinkable." "It is a perfectly logical request," Evan countered. "They want the man who murdered 2 of their star systems. Seems reasonable. They are not going to take our word for it." Liana looked at Koth. "Admiral, you saw the proof yourself. Malachar is a traitor. His honor is a lie. This is not about politics anymore. This is about survival. You will go to the Black Citadel. You will bring Lord Malachar here, alive. We are putting an end to his war, with his own testimony." Koth stared at her. He was being asked to perform the most degrading duty imaginable to hand over a Valtorian aristocrat, his former friend, to an alien enemy. But he had also seen the shield. He had seen the blue, calm light of the engine. The old way was gone. He snapped a salute. It was the first one he had given her in days. "As you command, Your Highness. I will bring the prisoner." He turned and marched from the room, his heavy boots echoing with a new, reluctant purpose. Evan let out a long breath. "See progress. Even the old dogs can learn new... He stopped. A faint, cold dread prickled his skin. He turned to his console, the one tied into the architect's true log. "What is it?" Leanna asked, seeing the look on his face. "The engine," Evan whispered. "The diagnostic mode. It just registered an anomaly. A query. From outside the armory." "A query? From who?" Evan ran the trace, his fingers flying. The signal was weak, masked, but its signature was unmistakable. It was not Malakar's raw, arrogant will. It was the cold, ancient, ritualistic signature of the High Priest. He is in the palace network. He is accessing the schematics, the old schematics, the ones showing the power conduits, the ones Malakar used. "The prison," Leanna breathed, her eyes wide with sudden terror. "The Black Citadel. It is an old fortress. It is tied into the same archaic power grid. Koth is walking into a trap." "He is not just accessing schematics," Evan said, his blood turning to ice as a new file opened. "He is accessing my personal logs, the ones I recorded in my quarters. He is learning what I learned. He is looking for the failsafe, for the decommission protocol." "Why?" Leanna cried. "Why would he do that?" "Because if Malakar is a traitor, their entire religion is a lie," Evan said, grabbing his tools. "A heretic empress is one thing. A false god is another. They would rather destroy the engine than see it proven to be a human's machine." "We have to warn Koth," Evan hit the comm. "Admiral, do not enter the Citadel. It is a trap. The priests are staging a..." The comm crackled, then died, replaced by a booming, chanted hymn. It was the rite of cleansing, broadcast over every palace channel. The priests were making their move. "He is not alone," Leanna said, her voice grim. She was already strapping her plasma sword to her hip. "Malakar has his own household guard, the Silver Guard. They were not at the council. They are loyal only to him, the priests. They are not trying to free Malakar. They are trying to silence him, and us, and destroy the engine." "No," Evan said, a terrible realization dawning. "No, you are both wrong." He looked at the console, at the trace. The High Priest was not just looking at the decommission protocol. He was looking at the power conduits. He was looking at the override codes for the armory's pocket dimension. "He is not trying to destroy it," Evan said, his voice hollow. "He is trying to free Malakar. He is going to cut the power to the cell, and he is going to let Malakar walk right back in here. Malakar wants us to know. He wants this confrontation." The blue, stable light of the Genesis engine flickered. The hum dropped in pitch, becoming a low, resonant growl. "Evan, what is happening?" Leanna asked, her hand on her sword. "The diagnostic mode. It has been overridden," Evan said, his console flashing red. "A system-wide power surge, directed from the old Citadel. The priest is... He is using the palace's entire energy grid as a brute force key. He is feeding power into the engine, trying to force it back into its divine state." The great sphere in the center of the room flared, its light shifting from blue to a violent, angry crimson. The psionic pressure slammed into the room, a wave of raw, chaotic, familiar power. It was Malakar's signature. "He is back!" Evan gasped, clutching his head. "The priest. He used the surge to reboot the system, to bypass my diagnostic lock. He has reconnected Malakar." The pocket dimension door hissed open. Lord Malakar stood there, his robes immaculate. He was flanked by a dozen of his personal guard, their silver armor gleaming, their plasma rifles raised. Behind them stood the High Priest, his face a mask of religious ecstasy, his staff held high. "Admiral Koth," Malachar said, his voice smooth and amplified by his own power. "Will be detained. He was kind enough to unlock the citadel for my new friends." "Malachar!" Lyanna ignited her sword, its snap hiss echoing in the suddenly hostile room. "This is over. The Heclarians know the truth. Your war is done." "War." Malachar chuckled, a sound utterly devoid of humor. He stepped into the armory, his eyes fixed on the crimson, pulsing engine. "You are still thinking about that fleet, that petty border dispute." He looked at her, his gaze filled with a vast, cold pity. "I am not a soldier, Lyanna. I am a prophet, and I have just been granted my revelation." He turned his gaze to Evan, his eyes burning with a terrifying, feverish light. "Thank you, engineer. You were the key. You thought you were so clever. You read the manual. You found the architects. You learned the logic. But you never understood the faith. I did. I have been listening. I have been learning. I do not want to be a god anymore. I want to be more." "What are you talking about?" Evan said, his mind racing, trying to get a lock on the engine's code. But it was a chaotic storm, a system screaming in agony. "You taught me, human," Malachar said, spreading his arms. The crimson light of the engine pulsed in time with his words. "You showed me the truth. This machine, it is not just a tool. It is not just a weapon. It is a bridge. The architects did not just build it. They transcended through it. They unwrote their physical bodies and became reality. And now, so shall I." "He is insane," Lyanna whispered, planting herself between Evan and Malachar. "He is," Evan agreed. "He is trying to force the unseating protocol, the reset button. He is not just trying to destroy the planet. He is trying to destroy the entire quadrant. He thinks he can ride the wave, that he can merge with the uncreation. He is not a prophet. He is a suicide bomber who wants to take the galaxy with him." "If I cannot have this empire," Malachar said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "then it does not deserve to exist. It is corrupt. It is weak. It chose you," he spat, "over me. I will cleanse it. I will unmake it all, and from the clean, pure nothingness, I will be reborn." He raised his hands. The crimson sphere flared. The psionic power was no longer a wave. It was a physical thing, a crushing, gravitational force that made the very atoms in the room scream. Malachar's Silver Guard raised their rifles, their weapons trained on Lyanna. The high priest began to chant, his voice rising in a terrible, ecstatic cry. "This is the climax," Evan thought, his mind weirdly calm in the face of annihilation. Great. A religious fanatic with a god complex and a suicide vest the size of a planet. Just my luck. "You cannot win, Malachar," Lyanna yelled, her voice straining against the psionic pressure. "Evan locked you out." "He locked out the politician," Malachar boomed, his body beginning to lift from the floor, his robes swirling in a vortex of power. "He locked out the man, but he cannot lock out the believer. He showed me the true key. Not logic, not science will. Pure, focused, absolute. Will." He was forcing his entire consciousness, his magic, into the engine's core. He was not trying to use its interface. He was trying to break its core, to shatter the containment. The walls of the armory began to vibrate, dust sifting from the unseen ceiling. "Lyanna, you have to stop him," Evan yelled, diving for his console. "Use the architect's logic. The shield create a barrier. Inside the engine." Lyanna closed her eyes, ignoring the guards, ignoring the chaos. She placed her hands on the console, Her own mind, the blue, logical mind of the architect, plunging into the crimson storm. She described a wall, a containment field, a shield of pure geometry. She screamed in pain. Malakar's chaotic, burning will met her ordered logic, and it was like a tidal wave hitting a sandcastle. He was too strong, too focused. His madness giving him a power she could not match. It is too much, she gasped, falling to one knee, blood trickling from her nose. His hate. It is burning. Me. Malakar laughed. A terrible, triumphant sound. Your logic is a child's toy. Your science is a whisper. Behold my faith. The engine flared, a blinding, white-hot pulse. The silver guards were thrown back. The high priest was instantly incinerated, his chant cut short, his body turning to ash. Malakar himself was a column of pure, dark energy, his human form dissolving, merging with the machine. Evan, Lyanna screamed, as the containment field of the armory itself began to buckle. Do something. Evan was at his console, his hands a blur. But the code was meaningless. It was just static. The system was crashing. Malakar was winning. Logic had failed. Science had failed. He looked at the raging column of energy that was Malakar. He looked at Lyanna, struggling to even stand. He looked at the machine that was about to unmake reality. He had been thinking like an engineer. He had been thinking like a human. But Malakar was not human anymore. He was faith. He was will. And Lyanna was not an empress. She was logic. She was order. This was a psionic battle, a fight of concepts. So what was he? He was the one who had seen both sides. He was the one who was not from this world. He was the alien, the outsider, the variable. He closed his eyes. He let go of the console. He stopped thinking like an engineer. He reached out. He had done it before, by accident. He had reflected Malakar's probe. He had harmonized with the engine. He had thought it was a trick of logic, of finding the right frequency. But it was not. It was him. For the first time in his life, Evan Forge let go of his doubt, his humor, his fear. He opened his mind. He felt the power. It was not magic. It was not science. It was potential. It was the same energy that held atoms together. It was the energy of creation. And it was in him, too. It had been his entire life, his knack for invention, his talent for seeing how things fit. It was not just a smart brain. It was this power, an untrained, raw, human psionic ability that the engine had not just recognized, but awakened. He was not just a variable. He was the key. You want will, Malakar, Evan whispered, his own voice sounding distant. He stepped away from the console, his hands loose at his sides. You want faith. He opened his eyes. They were glowing with the same blue, analytical light as the engine's diagnostic mode. He raised one hand. He did not push. He did not command. He became the system. He became the logic. He became the architect. He poured his entire consciousness, his logical, human, creative mind, into the machine. But he did not fight Malakar's chaos. He contained it. If Lyanna's mind was a sandcastle, his was a dam of pure, unfeeling diamond. Malakar's chaotic energy, his burning faith, slammed into Evan's absolute, mathematical certainty. It was the ultimate paradox. The human, the most chaotic variable, had just become the avatar of pure order. Malakar, inside the machine, screamed. It was a sound of pure, uncomprehending agony. His faith was being analyzed. His will was being categorized. His magic was being debugged. This cannot be, 1,000 voices shrieked from the engine. You are just a man. I am an engineer, Evan said, his voice a calm, blue hum that matched the engine. And you are a bug in the system, and I am here to fix it. The crimson light in the sphere began to recede, compressed by the overwhelming, calm blue of Evan's will. Malachar was trapped. He was losing. He was being erased. But the engine, it was shattered. The core was critical. Malachar's chaotic assault had broken its fundamental structure. Even with Evan in control, the machine was tearing itself apart. The unseating protocol, the reset button, was no longer a threat. It was an inevitability. The failsafe had failed. The bomb was going to detonate. Evan, Leanna cried, seeing the light in the sphere turn a terrifying, absolute black. The core it is collapsing. The shield around the planet is gone. On the comm, Thorax's voice was screaming. Valtoria, your planet, it is imploding. The shield it is pulling. Space in. Evan looked at the core. He could not stop it. The chain reaction was irreversible. He could not contain it. He could not save the machine. He could not save the power. He could only end it. This was the choice. He could hold on, fight Malachar, and watch reality be unwritten. Or he could let Malachar win, in a way. He could destroy the board. He let go of his architect persona. He became an engineer again, a desperate, human engineer. He plunged his mind back into the collapsing core, past the screaming consciousness of Malachar, and he found the one command he had been terrified to even look at. The original failsafe. The final, desperate instruction from the architects themselves. Protocol decommission. It was not a command. It was a sacrifice. It required a conscious, living mind to authorize it, and to be consumed in the process. It was the key to the ignition, but the car was going over a cliff. Leanna, he yelled, his voice human again, strained with effort. Get Koth. Get to a ship now. Evan, no, what are you doing? She cried, scrambling towards him. I am fixing it, he roared. He looked at her, his eyes human again, filled with a terrible, final clarity. I am sorry. I broke your everything. He turned back to the black, collapsing core. He found Malachar's screaming, terrified consciousness, trapped in the eye of the storm. You wanted to ascend. You lunatic, Evan's mind whispered to the trapped soul. Fine. You can ride this all the way down. He wrapped his own consciousness, his will, his power, around the decommission protocol, and he pushed. Malachar screamed a final, thin sound of utter terror as Evan's will forced him into the protocol, making him the catalyst, the living sacrifice. Authorization forge, Evan, catalyst Malachar, command decommission, accepted. For 1 second, the armory was filled with a light so pure, so white, it was not light at all, but the color of creation itself, the Genesis engine, the reality shaper, the ancient, terrible machine, turned on itself. It did not explode, it unraveled. And the pocket dimension that held it, and the magic that had haunted the Empire, and the trapped, screaming soul of Lord Malachar, were all, simultaneously, deleted from existence. Evan felt a snap, a sudden, violent release, as his mind was thrown back into his own body with the force of a supernova. He collapsed to the floor, his body limp, his mind silent, as the armory, no longer a pocket dimension, became just a room again, a large, empty, circular room in the oldest part of the palace. The Genesis engine was gone. The power was gone. The humming had stopped. Leanna stared at the empty space where the sphere had been. Her comm crackled. Valtoria. What? What happened? The gravitic anomaly, it is gone. The shield is gone. Your planet is stable. It was Thorak. His voice was no longer hostile. It was just confused. Liana looked at the empty floor. She looked at Evan, who was unconscious, but breathing. She looked at her own hands, which were just hands. The power, the connection. It was gone. She was just an empress, in a broken palace, with a war fleet in her sky. She took a deep, shuddering breath. She was free. The white light, the color of uncreation, vanished. The violent, tearing sound of reality unraveling snapped into an absolute, deafening silence. The pocket dimension was gone. The armory was just a room. The oppressive, ancient hum of the Genesis engine, a sound that had been the heartbeat of the Valtorian Empire for millennia, was gone. The air, moments ago charged with psionic energy that could tear stars apart, was now utterly still, flat, and dead. It was the most profound nothing Evan had ever felt. Liana stood frozen, her ears ringing, staring at the empty circle of scorched stone on the floor, where the reality-shaping machine had floated. It was gone. The divine instrument, the god, the weapon, the curse. It was finished, wiped from existence. On the floor, Evan lay in a heap, motionless, his body limp as a discarded marionette. He was breathing. A frantic, static-laced voice burst from the comm panel, shattering the silence. Valtoria. What happened? The gravitic anomaly. It is gone. The shield is gone. Your planet is stable. It was Supreme Commander Thorak. His voice was no longer hostile. It was just confused. Liana stared at Evan's unconscious form. She stared at the empty spot on the floor. She looked at her own hands. They were just hands. The power, the connection, the magic that had defined her entire life, her title, her very blood. It was gone. She was just an empress, in a broken palace, with an enemy war fleet in her sky. And she was, for the first time in her life, completely and utterly free. She took a deep, shuddering breath. The air felt thin. She walked to the comm panel, her armored boots unsteady on the solid floor. She pressed the activation key. Supreme Commander Thorak, she said, her voice hoarse, stripped of its imperial resonance. It was the voice of a woman, not a goddess. This is Liana. The weapon has been destroyed. The traitor, Malachar, has been neutralized. The threat is over. It is finished. A long, crackling pause. Destroyed Empress. We registered an energy event that our sensors cannot classify it. It was not an explosion. It was a deletion. What did you do? Liana looked at Evan. What? He did. He was a Terran engineer. He found the failsafe. He decommissioned the machine. Permanently. She had to make a decision. The biggest of her life. The old way. The way of Malachar would be to lie, to bluster, to maintain the image of power. But the power was gone. All she had left was the truth. Commander Thorak, she said, her voice gaining a new, fragile strength. My empire has been living a lie for 1,000 years. We were worshipping a machine we did not understand. A machine that he proved was just a tool. A tool that a madman almost used to destroy us all. That tool is gone. The magic of the Valtorians. It is gone. She let out a short, bitter laugh. We are, just like you now. We are mortals. We are vulnerable. There was no precedent for this. No protocol. She was an Empress, admitting weakness to her mortal enemy. Another long silence. Then, Thorak's voice, translated, came back. But the tone was different. The hostility was gone, replaced by a deep, cautious respect. You are telling us the truth. The divine instrument is no more. I am, Lyanna said. I have no reason to lie. I have 3,000 ships in my sky, and my only superweapon was just uninstalled by a sleepy engineer from Earth. My government is in rebellion. My fleet is uncertain. I am asking for a truce, not as a goddess, but as a leader who has a very, very large mess to clean up. Empress, Thorak said, the clicks and hisses softening. We came here to destroy a god, but it seems we have found a mortal. We will hold our position. We will not fire, but we need proof. We need to see Malachar. We need to see something. You will, Lyanna said. Give me 1 hour. She cut the connection. The room was silent again. She rushed to Evan's side, kneeling, her armored glove on his chest. His heart was beating, slow and steady. He was just unconscious, utterly spent. The doors to the armory burst open. Admiral Koth stormed in, his face a mask of fury, his sidearm drawn, followed by a dozen of his own Marines. Your Highness, the comms are dead. I was cut off. The prisoner, Malachar. He stopped. His eyes swept the room. He saw the empty floor. He saw the dead consoles. He saw his Empress, kneeling on the ground, cradling the head of the alien engineer. Admiral, Lyanna said, looking up, her face stained with sweat and grime. It is over, Koth's gaze was uncomprehending. What? Where is it? Where is the engine? Gone, she said. Destroyed. Decommissioned. Malachar is gone with it. Evan. Engineer Forge. He stopped him. Koth stared at the empty space. He was a man built on foundations of divine right, of ancient power, of a holy war. In 1 second, all three had been vaporized. Gone, but the power, the magic, was a lie, Lyanna said, her voice hard. It was a machine, Koth. A machine Malachar broke, and this man, this human, had to sacrifice himself to destroy. The war is over. The Heclarians are waiting. They are waiting to talk. Cathor's mind, a rigid, military thing, simply could not process the data. But we are. The Heclarians are. The Heclarians are victims, Lyanna said, standing. Just as we were. Victims of Malachar. Now, I have an entire empire to rebuild. Admiral, I have a priesthood that has just been proven false. I have a military that was following a traitor. And I have an enemy fleet waiting for proof that we are not monsters. So you have a choice. You can stand there, mourning a god that never existed. Or you can help me save our people. She was not his Empress. Not in the way she had been. She was not a divine, distant icon. She was a commander, covered in soot. Her authority no longer derived from a magic machine, but from the simple, terrifying fact that she was the only one left standing. Cathie's hand, the one holding the pistol, trembled. He slowly, agonizingly, lowered it. He holstered it. What are your orders? Your Highness, he asked. The word Highness sounded strange, hollow, but also real. First, she said, looking at Evan, we get him to my personal quarters, not the Medikey, not a cell, my quarters. He is under my personal protection. Second, You will find the high priest, or what is left of him, and you will arrest his entire purification squad. They are accessories to treason. Third, you will come with me to the throne room. We are going to broadcast a message to the entire empire, and we are going to tell them the truth. Koth's eyes widened. All of it, Your Highness. The people, they will not. The system will collapse. The system is collapsed, Lyanna said, as she and Koth carefully lifted Evan's unconscious form. We are just managing the rubble. Now, help me. Evan woke up to the smell of something real. Not the sterile, metallic scent of the armory or the cold, dead obsidian of his prison. It smelled like herbs, like tea. He groaned, his entire body feeling like it had been put through a blender and then struck by lightning. His mind was quiet. For the first time since he had entered the armory, it was quiet. The incessant, low-level hum of the engine was gone. The psionic whispers, the pressure, the feeling of being watched by an ancient machine. It was just silent. He opened his eyes. He was not in his cell. He was in a room, a real room, with walls of warm, polished wood. Sunlight, or what passed for it on Valtoria, streamed in through a high window, illuminating floating dust motes. He was lying on a bed, a real one, with soft woven fabrics. Ugh, he groaned, sitting up. His head felt like it was full of angry bees. I would not recommend that. He turned. Lyanna was sitting in a chair in the corner of the room, near a small, steaming pot. She was not in her armor. She was not in her imperial robes. She was wearing a simple, dark tunic, identical to the one she had worn the night she first came to his quarters. Her hair, usually bound in intricate imperial braids, was down, falling over her shoulders. She looked human. Where? What? Evan managed, his throat dry. My personal chambers, she said. She stood and poured a cup of the steaming liquid. The ones my father built. The ones that are not on any official palace schematic. And you have been asleep for 2 days. She handed him the cup. It was warm. What is it? He rasped. Tea, she said. An old Valtorian blend. Herbs. It is supposed to calm the mind. I suspect you need it. He sipped. It was bitter, but warm. 2 days. The Heclarians. The engine. Malachar. The Heclarians are still in orbit, she said, sitting back down. They are talking. We are exchanging data. Their commander, Thorak, is surprisingly reasonable, once you prove you are not a reality-devouring monster. And Malachar, Evan whispered, the memory returning in a flash. The white light. The scream. Gone, Lyanna said, her voice flat. He was the catalyst. He was consumed. The engine is gone. Decommissioned. Just as you intended. You did it. Evan, you saved us. Evan stared into the cup. He had done it. He had actually done it. He had faced down a psychotic, would-be god and a universe-ending bomb. And he had won. He should have felt something. Relief. Triumph. He just felt empty and terrified. What is wrong? Lyanna asked, her gaze unnervingly perceptive. When I fought him, Evan said, his voice quiet, his hands shaking so hard the tea almost spilled. I felt it. The power. The psionic thing. It was not just the engine. It was me. He looked at her, his eyes wide with a new, dawning horror. I did not just use the engine's logic. Leanna, I, I became it. I felt his mind. I felt him break. I, I forced him into the protocol. I, I used him as a key. I, I killed him. Not in a fight. I unmade him. Just like the engine. He put the cup down, his knuckles white. I am like him. I have it. That magic. That will. I am just another one of you. Another potential Malachar. Another monster. Leanna was silent for a long moment. She leaned forward, her expression not of fear, but of a deep, weary understanding. Yes, she said quietly. You do have it. I felt it too. When we were training, you are a scion. That is the Terran word. Is it not a latent? The engine. It did not just obey you. It, as you said, it awakened you. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the violet sky. For my entire life, she said, I was told my power came from my blood, from my title, that it made me divine. It was a lie. It was just a genetic quirk, an ability to interface with a machine. Malachar had that quirk. He let it twist him. He believed it made him a god. He defined his entire existence by it. And when it was threatened, he chose to destroy reality rather than live without it. She turned back to him. You have it too, this power. And what did you do with it, your very first act, upon discovering your own divinity? Evan stared at his hands. You destroyed it, she finished, her voice soft. You decommissioned the entire source of it. You chose to be a man. Evan, a mortal. Malachar chose to be a dead god. You are nothing like him. Evan looked up, the terror in his chest easing, replaced by a profound aching. Confusion. He was an engineer. He fixed toasters. He built things. He was not this. So what? What happens now? He asked. The power. It is gone. The engine is gone. It is gone, she confirmed. The magic is gone from Valtoria. For all of us. I feel just as empty as you do. That connection. It is just silent. Good, Evan breathed. Good. That is good. Is it? She asked, a small, wry smile touching her lips. I have just lost my divine right. My entire government has collapsed. Admiral Koth is barely holding the fleet together, mostly out of sheer confusion. The priesthood is in open, armed rebellion in the lower city, trying to avenge Malachar, who they now believe you martyred, and the Heclarians. They are being polite, but they are still here, and they want reparations. They want a lot. Evan could not help it. A small, dry chuckle escaped him. Wow. So, I really broke it. I did not just break the engine. I broke your entire planet. You did, she agreed, her smile widening. It was a strange, beautiful sight. You have, in the span of less than a month, dismantled our religion, our government, and our entire social structure. You ended a war, and you may have just started a civil one. Congratulations. Engineer, your efficiency is terrifying. He laughed, a real laugh this time, though it hurt his ribs. I am sorry. I did not. I was just trying to stop the universe-ending part. I know, she said. She came and sat on the edge of the bed. The distance between them was gone. The Empress and the consultant were gone. It was just Leanna and Evan. So, she said, her voice practical, but her eyes searching his. The Heclarians. They are sending a diplomatic team. Their commander, Thorak, wants to meet in person. Here. Tomorrow. He what? Evan said, suddenly sober. Here in this tinderbox. He trusts me, she said. He trusts the woman who admitted she had no power. He does not trust the system. He wants to meet us. Us. He specifically requested the presence of the alien engineer, she said. He wants to meet the man who, and I quote, unplug the god. He seems to think you are some kind of mystical philosopher, a warrior poet. Evan groaned, putting his head in his hands. Oh, no. I am just a guy. I fix things. I am not a poet. What am I supposed to say to him? You will say, Leanna said, her hand gently touching his shoulder. What you said to me. You will tell him the truth. You will be an engineer. You will tell him how you fixed the problem. He looked at her. Her hand was warm. It was the first, gentle human touch he had felt in. He could not remember how long. I cannot, he said, his voice small. Leanna, I do not belong here. I am just a human. I want to go home. The words hung in the air between them. Home. Earth. A place he had not seen in 8 years. A place that thought he was dead. Leanna's expression did not change, but her eyes, they lost some of their light. She slowly pulled her hand back. I see, she said, her voice carefully neutral. Of course, you have done more than anyone could have asked. You have saved us. You are free to go. When this is stable, I will give you a ship, the best one we have. You can go home. She stood up, her mask of neutrality firmly in place. I will let you rest. She was walking to the door. She was going to leave, and he would be alone again. He looked around the room. He looked at his own, shaking hands. He had power, a power that was his. He was not a human. Not really. Not anymore. And if he went back to Earth, what would he be? A monster? A scion? A secret? He was not just a human. He was not a Valtorian. He was something in between. And here, in this room, was the only other person in the entire universe who understood. The only other person who had seen. The only other person who knew what it felt like to lose that connection. Leanna, he said. She stopped, her hand on the door, her back to him. You are in a lot of trouble. Are not you? He asked. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. I am on the brink of civil war. My economy is about to collapse because its entire foundation was a divine lie. And I have 3,000 very polite, very heavily armed aliens in my sky who are demanding reparations. So, yes, engineer, I am in some trouble. Right, Evan said. He swung his legs off the bed. He was weak, but he was alive. So, this reparation thing, what do they want money ships? She turned to face him, a flicker of something in her eyes. Technology. They are not as advanced as we are, as we were. Their ships are slower. They want hyperdrive schematics. They want our technology, the technology that Malachar refused to share. And the priests, Evan asked, standing up, his legs shaky. What do they want? They want my head, Leanna said simply. They want the holy system back. They want to... I do not know. They are just angry. They have lost their power. They are lashing out. Evan nodded. He walked over to the small table, picking up the pot of tea. He poured himself another cup. So, he said, taking a sip, you have a fleet of aliens who want new engines. And you have a population of angry, unemployed priests who have just lost their magic. And you have an entire civilization to rebuild, without a god to tell you how. That sums it up. Yes, she said. It is a big problem, Evan said. It is, she agreed. It is an engineering problem. She looked at him. Really looked at him. He took a deep breath. He was terrified. He was terrified of his own power. He was terrified of this broken, violent world. He was terrified of her. But he was an engineer, and he hated leaving a job unfinished. I cannot go home, he said quietly. Not yet. I do not even know what home is anymore. And I broke this. I should probably stick around to, fix it. Leanna did not smile. She did not cry. She just watched him, her heart hammering in her chest. Fix it, she whispered. Evan, this is not a toaster. This is a civilization. I know, he said. He gave her a small, shaky smile. But it is the same principle. You have broken parts. You have an unstable power source, which is now the people. And you have a user who does not know how to use it. You need a new manual. He held her gaze. The Heclarians. They want engines. Fine. I will give them engines. Better ones. I can design a new hyperdrive. A peace drive. A joint project. Something to build together. And the priests, she asked, her voice barely audible. The priests, Evan said, a flicker of his old, wry humor returning. They lost their magic. They need a new job. They are organized. They are dedicated. They are a workforce. A social services department. They can help. Rebuild. You do not need prayers. You need projects. You do not need faith. You need engineering. You need to give them a new way to serve. He was rambling. He was designing. He was fixing. He stopped. He looked at her. This is a choice, he said, the words from the outline echoing in his own new reality. This is my decision. I cannot use the weapon. It is gone. I destroyed the weapon. I know, she said. So, he said, taking a step closer. My decision is, do I stay? Do I help you? Bill, do I cooperate with you to build a new future for Valtoria? He was standing in front of her now. He was just a man. She was just a woman. And the whole broken galaxy was waiting outside the door. I think I have to, he said, his voice dropping. I cannot walk away. This is my duty, my responsibility. I am an engineer. Leanna looked at him. She saw the conflict. She saw his fear of his own power. She saw his love, not for her, not yet, but for the problem, for the fix. She saw his sacrifice. He was sacrificing his home, his peace, his anonymity. She, too, had a decision. She could be an empress. She could use him as a tool, again. Or she could be a partner. She reached out. She did not touch him. She just offered her hand, not as a queen, demanding fealty, but as a partner, an equal. Then, she said, her voice shaking, just a little, let us go build, engineer forge. Evan looked at her hand. It was just a hand. He took it. It was warm. Okay, he said. Okay, but first, I am going to need more tea. A lot. More tea. And a real workshop. My old one. I want my shop back. Lianana laughed. It was a real, bright, beautiful sound. I think, she said, her hand holding his. That can be arranged. The hour was a tense, compressed eternity. Liana had moved them from the inert armory to the main throne room, a place she had once hated, but which she now reclaimed as a simple seat of government. The burning star above the throne was extinguished, replaced by functional, practical lighting. The room felt smaller, colder, but more real. Evan sat in a chair beside the throne, not below it. He had been given fresh clothes, and the imperial medici had pronounced him profoundly exhausted, but stubbornly functional, which Evan felt was a fair summary of his entire life. Admiral Koth stood at the base of the dais, his armor polished, his face a mask of grim duty. The great obsidian doors slid open. Supreme Commander Thorak of the Heclarian fleet entered. He was massive, a full head taller than any Valtorian, his body encased in matte black environmental armor. His species was saurian, with deep, resonant voices and unblinking, reptilian eyes. He was flanked by 2 guards, but he held his helmet under one arm, a gesture of cautious diplomacy. Empress Liana. Thorak's translated voice boomed, the clicks and hisses rendered into a deep baritone. The man who unplugged the god. He inclined his head toward Evan, who gave a small, awkward wave. Commander Thorak, Liana said, rising from her throne. She did not wear her crown. Welcome to Valtoria. We apologize for the hostile reception. Thorak's large, reptilian head swiveled, taking in the room. Your throne room is less divine than our legends suggested. Our legends were exaggerated, Liana said. As you have seen. Please. We have little time, and much to discuss. You have requested reparations. Thorak turned his full attention to her. We have 2 star systems, billions of lives, wiped from existence by your machine. An accident. You claim. We are a practical people. Empress. Accidents must still be paid for. And they will be, Liana said. But what price do you put on such a loss? Ship's territory gold. We can offer you these things. But it is an insult. It is the old way. The way of Malachar. Blood for blood. Gold for gold. Thorak's eyes narrowed. What, then? Do you offer? Liana looked at Evan. It was his move. Evan stood, feeling ridiculously small next to the Heclarian. Commander, he said, his voice quiet. You do not want gold. You want justice, and you want security. You want to be sure this never, ever happens again. Your words are accurate. Engineer, Thorak said. Good. Evan said. Justice is complicated. The man responsible, Malachar, is gone. He was consumed by his own madness, decommissioned along with the machine. There is no one left to punish, except a population of people who are just as much victims as you are. An convenient excuse, Thorak rumbled. It is the truth, Evan said. But truth does not fix your problem. Your problem is that your technology, it is lagging. Your fleet is massive, but it is slow. You are afraid of your neighbors because you cannot outrun them, or outbuild them. Your people are trapped. That is why the loss of 2 systems was so apocalyptic. Thorak's nostrils flared. You are dangerously well-informed, and arrogant. I am an engineer, Evan said. I read your fleet's engine specs when you dropped out of warp. They are inefficient. You are burning way too much fuel for your FTL trajectories. Koth looked like he was about to have a stroke. Liana just watched Evan. What is your point? Human Thorak asked, a dangerous edge to his voice. My point, Evan said, is that we can give you ships, or I can give you a hyperdrive, a new one. Not Valtorian, not Terran, something new. Based on the principles I learned from the machine. A drive that is 50% more efficient. A drive that would let your people expand, trade, evacuate, if you ever needed to. A drive that would make you secure, not with weapons, but with speed. Thorak was silent. He stared at Evan, his unblinking gaze intense. You would give this to us, your greatest technological secret. Why? Because, Evan said, it is not a secret. It is just physics. And because we do not want you as an enemy. We do not want you as a recipient of our reparations. We want you as a partner. We, Valtoria. We are broken. We have just woken up from a 1,000-year-old lie. We have a lot of rebuilding to do. We need friends. We need trade. We need a future. You do, too. He held out his hand. We cannot pay you back for what Malachar did. It is impossible. But we can build a new future. Together. We will give you the drive schematics. You give us a trade agreement. And peace. We stop this. Right now. Liana held her breath. Thorak looked at Evan's small, human hand. He looked at Liana, the mortal Empress. He looked at Koth, the symbol of the military he had been prepared to annihilate. He saw the truth. It was a desperate, insane, and brilliant offer. It was an engineering solution to a political problem. A 50% increase. Thorak rumbled. A strange, clicking sound coming from his throat. It might have been a laugh. At least, Evan said, with a small, confident smile. I am a very good engineer. Thorak did not take his hand. Instead, he gave a short, reptilian bow. Your offer, Engineer Forge, is logical. We accept. We will talk. A formal truce. My diplomatic team will collaborate with you. On Project Hyperdrive. He turned to Liana. You are a strange leader, Empress Liana. You have a very strange advisor. This will be an interesting future. When the obsidian doors closed, Liana let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 2 days. She sank back into her throne. A joint project, she asked, looking at Evan. Project Hyperdrive. It sounded official, Evan shrugged. And I can do it. I have had some ideas. The physics the architects used was elegant. I can adapt it. You just, Koth said, his voice hollow, gave our greatest military advantage to our mortal enemy. For free. I just, Evan countered, turned our mortal enemy into our biggest customer, and our best protection against the next enemy. We do not need a military advantage. Admiral. We just built a trade advantage. That is better. That lasts longer. Koth stared at him, his mind clearly grinding gears. That is logical. It is treasonous, but it is logical. Welcome to the new Valtoria. Admiral, Liana said, a tired smile on her face. Now, we have a new problem. The Heclarians are collaborating. My own people are rioting. The internal problem was, in many ways, worse. The destruction of the Genesis engine had not been a quiet, internal affair. The psionic shockwave, the sudden, absolute silence as the god of Valtoria vanished, had been felt by everyone. It was the great silence, and the populace had fractured. The priests, led by the fanatical acolytes of the high priest who had been incinerated, were in the lower city, calling for the Empress's head. They were the faithless, preaching that the alien heretic Evan had murdered their god. The aristocracy, the old blood families who, like Malachar, had minor psionic sensitivities, were now just normal. Their divine gift was gone. They were ordinary. They were terrified, lost, and angry. Their entire social status erased overnight. The military, Koth's military, was the only thing holding the capital city together. They are burning the administrative towers, Koth reported, his voice grim. They were in a small, secure, functional strategy room. No thrones, just a table and a screen. The faithless they are well organized. They are using the old temple networks. They are fanatics. They want a holy war. Then we will not give them one, Evan said. He was drinking tea. He was always drinking tea now. What do you mean, not give them one? Koth snapped. They are burning the city. They are burning symbols, Evan said. They are angry. They are unemployed. And they are scared. Their entire purpose just vanished. You cannot fight that. You cannot win against that. You have to rehire them. Rehire a mob of rioting priests, Koth asked, looking at Liana as if Evan had finally gone insane. He is right, Liana said, her voice quiet. She had been thinking about this, about Evan's fix. They are not priests, she said. Not anymore. They are administrators. They are logisticians. They are an organizational structure. For 1,000 years, they ran the holy tithes. They managed the divine offerings. They ran the temple infrastructure. You mean, Evan translated. They ran the tax system and public works, but with incense. Yes, Liana said, a small smile playing on her lips. With incense. So, we retask them. We promote them. 2 days later, Liana broadcast her message, not from the throne room, but from the steps of the Grand Archive. She did not wear armor. She wore a simple, administrative robe. Admiral Koth stood to one side. Evan stood to the other. People of Valtoria, she began. Her voice carried across the system. You have felt the great silence. You have lost your God. You have lost your faith. I am sorry. We were all deceived. For 1,000 years. By a lie. By a machine. She paused. The divinity was a lie. But the work was real. The dedication was real. The service was real. She looked directly into the camera. The priesthood is hereby dissolved. In its place, I create the Valtorian Reconstruction Authority, the VRA. Its mission is not divine. It is essential. To rebuild our world. To feed the hungry. To house the homeless. To manage the collaboration with our new partners, the Heclarians. To build a new future. A real one. Every acolyte, she continued. Every priest. Every administrator who served the temple is now offered a position in the VRA. Your faith was lost. But your work, your purpose, is needed now more than ever. We do not need prayers. We need engineers. We need managers. We need you. It was brilliant. It was Evan's idea, but her execution. She did not defeat the priesthood. She promoted them. She rebranded them. She validated their work, while defanging their ideology. The rioting did not stop overnight, but it faltered. The fanatics lost their audience. The average acolyte, who was mostly just a bureaucrat, suddenly had a choice. be a terrorist with no God, or be a manager in a new government with a salary and a purpose. The system did not break. It bent. Evan got his workshop back. It was just as he had left it. Dusty. Chaotic. Smelling of ozone and synthetic grease. Leanna had had it deconsecrated, or unsealed, or whatever they had done to it. It was his. It was also now the Interstellar Institute for Applied Sciences. A very grand title for a dusty room. It was where he met the Heclarian diplomatic team, which turned out to be a group of very large, very serious engineers. They did not care about gods or politics. They cared about efficiency and thrust-to-weight ratios. They loved him. This focusing array. A Heclarian engineer named Grack rumbled, pointing at Evan's new schematic for the peace drive. It folds the space in front of the vessel. It does not push from behind, correct, Evan said, sipping his tea. You are not traveling through space. You are pulling space towards you. It is cleaner. Less energy loss. Grack looked at him with his large, unblinking eye. You are a poet, Engineer Forge. A poet of physics. Evan sighed. I am not a poet. I am just lazy. It is an easier equation. The weeks turned into months. The Great Silence gave way to the Great Reconstruction. The Empire was gone. It was now the Valtorian collaboration, a republic in all but name. Leanna was still Empress, but her throne was now just a chair at the head of a very large, very loud council table, a council that now included Heclarians, and merchants, and engineers. Admiral Koth became her head of security. He grumbled about the paperwork, but his loyalty was absolute. He respected the woman who chose truth over divinity. The priesthood became the VRA. They complained about the budgets and the lack of incense, but they ran the food distribution networks with a terrifying efficiency. And Evan built. He taught. He designed. He fixed. He oversaw the construction of the new hyperdrive factories. He redesigned the capital city's power grid. He fixed a lot of toasters. He was the most famous man in the quadrant. The man who unplugged God. He hated the title. He was just an engineer. And in the quiet hours, in the dead of night, in his locked workshop, he practiced. He held a small metal bearing in his hand. He closed his eyes. He reached out with his mind, with his power, the latent psionic knack that the engine had awakened. It was not gone. It was his. He focused. He pushed. The bearing rose 1 inch from his palm and hovered. He was terrified. And he was disciplined. He was not Malachar. He would not be Malachar. This was not magic. It was science. A new science. A human science. He was studying himself. As an engineer, Leanna found him like that one night. She had taken to visiting his workshop late, when the council meetings were over, when the pressure was too much. She brought tea. She entered without knocking. She saw the floating metal ball. She stopped. Evan jumped, and the bearing clattered to the floor. I was just, he stammered. It is not what it looks like. Leanna did not look afraid. She did not look angry. She just looked sad. You still have it, she whispered. I do, he admitted, his shame palpable. I am sorry. I did not tell you. Why, she asked. Are you afraid I would think you are him? I am afraid I am him. Evan confessed. This power, Leanna, it feels easy. It feels good. To push. To make things obey. I am scared of it. Of myself. She walked closer. She knelt and picked up the metal bearing. She looked at it in her hand. I am jealous, she said. Her voice so quiet he barely heard it. He looked at her, stunned. Jealous Leanna. It is a curse. Is it, she asked. She looked at him, her eyes shining. I lost everything. My connection, my heritage, my magic. I am just mortal. I am just a politician. I argue about budgets and trade routes. But you still have it. The spark. The architect's gift. You are still more. No, Evan said firmly. He gently took her hand and closed her fingers around the bearing. This is not power, Liana. It is just a tool. You are the one who is more. You had everything. You had divinity. And you let it go. You chose to be mortal. You chose to lead your people in the light. Without magic. Without lies. That is power. Real power. I am just the guy who fixed the plumbing. She looked at their hands. His calloused engineer's hand covering hers. A tear traced a path down her cheek. You are infuriating, she whispered. I am helpful, he whispered back. They stood like that for a long moment. The silence in the workshop was no longer empty. It was filled with an understanding, a shared truth. The cold cooperation of the armory was long gone. The stressful partnership of the reconstruction was fading. This was something else. They want to put your face on a coin, she said, attempting to lighten the mood. No, Evan said immediately, horrified. Absolutely not. You tell them no. My face is not for commerce. What about a statue, she teased, a small smile returning, a big one. In the main plaza, holding a wrench. I will sabotage it, he warned, his own smile returning. I will make it spin around and play music, she laughed. A real laugh. You probably would. I absolutely would, he confirmed. The laughter faded into a comfortable silence. Thank you, Evan, she said, her voice serious again. Not for saving us, not for fixing the hyperdrives, but for staying. For not letting me do this alone. I did not just stay for the engineering problem, he admitted, his voice low. I stayed because I could not imagine you dealing with all these idiots by yourself. You needed a consultant. Is that all I needed? She asked, looking up at him. He looked at her, the Empress, the woman, the engineer, his partner. No, he said, his voice soft. No. I think you needed a friend. And I think I did too. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Just for a moment. Exhausted. Mortal. And safe. So, she murmured. What is next on your list? Engineer Forge. After reinventing interstellar travel and toppling a theocracy, Evan looked out the workshop window. A newly designed Valtorian Heclarian cargo ship, sleek and fast, was lifting off from the rebuilt spaceport, its new drive leaving a clean, blue trail in the violet sky. The city was still scarred, but it was alive. It was working. I was thinking, he said, putting an arm around her shoulder. The palace plumbing. It is a mess. The water pressure on the upper levels is terrible. Liana laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. I think, she said, leaning into him, that sounds like a perfect next step. The air over the capital was finally still. A silence, thick and heavy, had replaced the screams and the clash of steel. From the high balcony of the imperial palace, the city below looked like a broken mosaic. Plumes of smoke, now gray and listless, rose from 100 different wounds in the urban sprawl. The sun was beginning its long, slow descent, painting the bruised sky in hues of orange and a deep, sorrowful purple. Liana stood with her hands gripping the cold stone of the balustrade. Her royal armor was stained with soot and blood, some of it hers, much of it not. She felt a profound emptiness, a hollow space where the adrenaline of battle had been. The victory felt less like a triumph and more like a cessation of pain. Now, the true ache began, the ache of rebuilding. The weight of the crown she had yet to officially claim felt heavier than the entire palace. Beside her, Evan leaned against a pillar, his posture a study in casual exhaustion. His strange clothes from his own world were ripped and filthy. He had a long cut on his forearm that he had wrapped with a strip of silk torn from a fallen banner. He was gazing out at the setting sun, his expression unreadable. He had saved them. This impossible man, with his baffling words and his complete lack of reverence for anything, had been the key. He had seen the flaw in the sorcerer's magic, not as a failure of arcane lore, but as a logic bug, a term that made her royal mages twitch. He had faced down the ultimate darkness with a sarcastic remark and an idea so insane it had actually worked. Lyanna's mind, a place usually filled with strategy and imperial protocol, felt remarkably quiet. She looked at him. Really looked at him. He was not a warrior. He was not a mage. He was not a nobleman. He was just Evan, and she was terrifyingly, undeniably grateful to him. But gratitude was a poor foundation for an empire. "So," Evan said, his voice quiet, breaking the long silence. "That was a thing. Definitely going to leave a bad review on the interstellar travel website. Destination not as advertised. Overrun with dark lords. Service was hostile. 0 stars. Would not recommend." Lyanna found she did not have the energy to be exasperated by him. A small, tired smile touched her lips. "I am glad you find our apocalypse amusing. Hey, if I do not laugh, I am going to start screaming," he said, pushing himself off the pillar. He winced as he put weight on his leg. "And I think we have had enough screaming for one day. Or, 1 decade." He walked over to stand beside her, his eyes scanning the city. "What happens now, Your Highness? Or is it Your Majesty? I can never get the titles right. Do you just snap your fingers and all this gets cleaned up?" Lyanna sighed, the sound lost in the wind. Now the hard part begins. We find survivors. We count the dead. We secure the food stores. We stop the looting, and we crown a new ruler." She turned to face him fully. The dying light caught the sharp planes of her face, illuminating the exhaustion in her eyes, but also the steel beneath it. This was her moment of decision. The old ways were shattered. The line of succession was a broken chain. She needed something new. She needed him. "Evan," she said, her voice formal, clear, and carrying the command she was born to. "The imperial throne is vacant. The old laws of succession died with my father, and were buried by the sorcerer. The empire needs a new foundation." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Okay, sounds like a big job. You will probably want to post that on a few job boards. Get some resumes. Seeking ruler. Must have experience in managing. All this. Dark magic immunity a plus." He was deflecting. He knew what she was going to say. Lyanna's internal thoughts were clear. He is afraid of this. Good. Only a fool would not be. "I am not posting it anywhere," she said. "I am offering it. To you. Or half of it. At least." Evan's joking expression finally faltered. He stared at her. "Half of what? The last piece of stale bread in the pantry." "Half the empire," Lyanna stated, leaving no room for misunderstanding. "Rule with me. The people saw what you did. They do not just respect you. They are baffled by you, which is close enough to awe. They will follow you. Be my fellow emperor. We will rule together. As equals." There it was. The offer lay between them, shimmering and dangerous. Evan's mind, which had been blissfully blank and focused on the prospect of a hot bath and 16 hours of sleep, suddenly rebooted. It was as if his brain had encountered a critical error and was now displaying a bright blue screen of panic. "Fellow Emperor," his inner voice screamed, suddenly, several octaves higher. "Fellow Emperor, me, Evan. I am the guy who once tried to microwave a burrito still in the foil wrapper. I am the guy who killed 3 houseplants in a row, just by looking at them too sternly. Does she know who she is talking to? I cannot even commit to a phone plan for more than a year. An empire. He pictured himself sitting on a throne, wearing one of those ridiculous spiky crowns. What would he even do? Hear ye, by royal decree. Afternoon naps are now mandatory. The Duke of Scrimshaw is plotting treason. Tell him I will get back to him after this next episode, and send in the royal taster. I think this wine is corked. He would be assassinated within a week, and he would probably deserve it. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He ran a hand through his hair, dislodging a small piece of rubble. "Liana," he said, and it was a struggle to keep his voice even. Wow, that is an offer. That is probably the most insane and deeply flattering offer I have ever received. It definitely beats the 40% off coupon I got from my local pizza place last week." He took a deep breath. "But I have to, very respectfully, decline. With extreme prejudice, and maybe a little bit of running away." Liana's expression did not change, but her internal thoughts were a mix of disappointment and profound understanding. Of course he refuses. He is not a man who craves power. That is why he is the only one I would ever trust with it. He is not like my father. He is not like any nobleman I have ever met. He is just... Evan. "Why?" she asked, though she already knew. "You are a hero. You have the people's love." "Love," Evan scoffed, a genuine laugh bubbling up. "They do not love me. They are just happy I am not the other guy, the one who was flinging around dark energy like it was confetti. They have, not being immediately incinerated, confused with love. Trust me, the novelty will wear off, especially when they find out my grand economic plan involves trading shiny rocks for slightly different shiny rocks." He turned back to the city, his face growing more serious. "I cannot be your emperor, Liana. I am not built for it. I do not know your customs. I do not know your laws. I do not know your people. I am the tech support guy. I saw a problem. I unplugged the evil sorcerer and plugged him back in again, and it fixed it. That is all. I am not a king." He looked at her, his eyes meeting hers. "But you are a queen. I have seen you. You were born for this. You know exactly what to do." "I know what I was taught to do," Liana corrected him, a bitter edge to her voice. "I was taught to command, to rule, to be unbending. And look what it brought us. My father's unbending rule is what gave the sorcerer his opening. The people were so oppressed, they were willing to listen to anyone who offered change, even a monster." She stepped away from the balcony, walking back into the shadows of the throne room. The great doors were shattered, and moonlight streamed in, illuminating the overturned throne. "The old way is broken. Evan, you said it yourself. I cannot just rebuild it as it was. It will only happen again." Evan followed her, his limp more pronounced on the uneven floor. He stopped a few feet away, watching her as she stared at the symbol of her family's power, now lying in ruins. "So do not rebuild it as it was," he said, his voice soft. She looked at him. "What else is there?" "Something new," he said. He gestured vaguely with his hands, as if trying to grasp an idea from the air. "Something better. You do not need a fellow emperor, Liana. You need a consultant, a very confused, underqualified consultant, who will probably work for food." A flicker of interest lit her eyes. "What are you proposing?" "I will not rule," he said, "but I will stay for a while, anyway. I still have to figure out how to get home, but I will not just abandon you with this. He gestured to the ruined room. The city. The empire. I will help you rebuild. We will do it together. But on new terms. New terms, she repeated. The words sounded foreign. From my world, he said, a small, hesitant smile on his face. We have a lot of problems. A lot. But we have some interesting ideas. Ideas about people. About what they are worth. Liana's internal thoughts swirled. Ideas like his logic bug, like his sarcasm. What is he talking about? What ideas? She asked, her voice cautious. Well, Evan said, scratching his chin. For starters, this whole one person tells everyone what to do thing. We have alternatives to that. It is called voting. It is where you ask the people what they want. All of them. Even the smelly ones. Liana stared at him, as if he had just suggested they all learn to fly by flapping their arms. Ask the people, the farmers, the blacksmiths, the sewer cleaners. That is madness. They would demand nothing but bread and beer and holidays. Nothing would ever get done. It would be chaos. It is chaos, Evan admitted with a grin. It is total, complete, utter chaos. It is messy, and it is loud, and everyone is angry all the time. But it is also kind of good. Because it makes it harder for one person to get all the power and go full-on dark sorcerer. It spreads the blame around. He could see he was not selling it. Okay, too big. Start smaller. Look, he said, changing tactics. Let us not jump straight to democracy. Let us just walk, talk. Come on. I want to see the city. Not from up here. From down there. Where the actual people are. Liana hesitated. A queen. Walking among the ruins. I cannot. I am needed here. I have to organize the guard. The guard can wait an hour, Evan insisted, walking toward the shattered doorway. You need to see what you are fighting for. What you are rebuilding. Come on. I will protect you from any, I do not know, angry bakers, or whatever. She looked at the throne. She looked at him. He was right. She had been in a palace, a war tent, or a fortress her entire life. She nodded, pulling off her heavy armored gauntlets and dropping them on the floor with a clang. Very well, but I will be protecting you. You can barely walk. Details. Evan waved him off. Let us go. They walked out of the throne room, two solitary figures in a palace built for thousands. The halls were ghostly, the rich tapestries torn and scorched. Guards and servants they passed stared at them, their expressions a mixture of fear and reverence. They bowed deeply to Liana, and then gave Evan a confused, sidelong glance, as if unsure what he was. Evan just gave them a little finger wave. When they reached the great plaza in front of the palace, the scale of the destruction hit them. The beautiful fountains were choked with rubble. Market stalls were overturned and burned, and everywhere there were people. They were sitting in small, stunned groups, or wandering aimlessly, their faces blank with shock. But as Liana and Evan moved among them, a change occurred. People saw the queen, they saw Liana, alive, walking among them. And they saw the strange man who was said to have killed the sorcerer. Whispers followed them. A few people knelt. A few people cried out her name. A small, dirty child, no older than 6, ran up to them, holding out a scorched apple. For the queen, she whispered. Liana stopped. She looked at the child, and her royal composure, the one she had maintained through the entire battle, finally cracked. Her eyes filled with tears. She knelt, her knees hitting the hard cobblestones, and took the apple. Thank you, she said, her voice thick. What is your name? "Hannah, Your Majesty," the girl said. "Thank you, Hannah. You are very brave." The girl then looked at Evan. "Are you the man from the sky?" Evan crouched down, wincing at his leg. "Something like that, kid. I am Evan, and I am mostly from, well, it is complicated. Nice apple." The girl giggled, a small, thin sound in the devastation. As they continued to walk, Evan kept talking, his voice low. "See, that is what you are rebuilding. Not the palace, not the empire. That little girl, and thousands like her." Leanna nodded, wiping her eyes angrily. "I know that. But do you?" he pressed, gently. "Because the old way did not really care about her. Not really. It cared about her father's taxes. It cared about whether her brother would be a good soldier. But it did not care if she was happy. Or if she could read." "Read," Leanna said, confused. "Why would she need to read? She is a commoner." "So she can decide for herself," Evan said. "So she can learn things. So she can be more than just a commoner. So she can look at her queen and say, 'Hey, I think you are doing a good job.' Or, 'Hey, I think your new tax on apples is a terrible idea.' That is another one. Education, for everyone. Not just the rich kids." Leanna was quiet for a long time as they walked. They were moving into the poorer districts now, where the destruction was somehow even more total. The wooden tenements had burned like tinder. "It would unravel everything," she finally said. "The nobility, the class system, the guilds. If everyone can read, if everyone can vote, why would they need a queen?" "They will need a queen to stop them from strangling each other," Evan said frankly. "They need a leader, a guide, someone to set the tone, to be the best version of themselves. That is what a real leader is. Leanna. Not the person with the biggest stick, but the person who inspires everyone else to be better. You can be that person." They came upon a large, fortified building, one of the few still standing. It was a temple, its thick stone walls having resisted the worst of the magic. A line of people, many of them moaning, were waiting outside. It had been converted into a makeshift hospital. "I must see this," Leanna said, striding toward the entrance. Inside, it was chaos. The air was thick with the smell of blood, herbs, and unwashed bodies. The wounded lay on blankets, on tables, on the cold stone floor. In the center of it all, a tall man with graying hair and a blood-soaked apron was shouting orders, his face a mask of weary fury. "More clean bandages," he yelled. "And boil more water. I do not care if we have to burn the pews. Boil the water." A younger acolyte hurried over to him. "Dr. Alistair, this man. His leg is—" "I see it," the doctor snapped. "It is poisoned. There is nothing I can do. Make him comfortable. Move on to the next one." Leanna walked forward. The noise in the room quieted as people recognized her. Dr. Alistair looked up, his eyes red-rimmed, and he actually growled. "The Queen. Wonderful. Have you come to—" "What, give a speech?" "We do not need speeches, Your Majesty. We need bandages. We need medicine. We need miracles." Leanna flinched, but held her ground. "I have no miracles, Doctor. Only my thanks. You are doing a hero's work." "I'm doing a butcher's work," he said bitterly, turning back to a patient. Evan had been looking around, his face pale. He was clearly out of his element, his internal thoughts racing. God, the smell. It is medieval. They are not washing their hands. They are just wiping them on their aprons. They are moving from a sick person to an open wound. They are... Oh, they are killing as many as they are saving. He limped over to the doctor. Excuse me, doctor. That water you are boiling. What is it for? Dr. Alistair glared at him. Who are you, her taster? It is for drinking, you fool. The wells are full of ash. Right, good, Evan said. But you should use it for your bandages too, and your tools. The doctor stared at him. Use precious drinking water to wash bandages. Are you insane? We rinse them in the basin and use them again. No, Evan said, his voice firm, losing its joking tone for the first time. No. You cannot do that. You have to boil them. Boil the bandages. Boil your knives. Boil everything that touches an open wound. And you have to wash your hands. With soap and hot water. Between every single patient. Dr. Alistair looked at Evan as if he had just sprouted a second head. Wash my hands, boy. I am trying to save lives. I do not have time for personal hygiene. And boil my tools. The fire will ruin their temper. Dead is dead, doctor, Evan said, his voice low and intense. Look, I am from far away. In my world, we learned that there are tiny monsters. Invisible. They live in the blood, in the filth. They get into the wounds and they cause the poison. They cause the sickness. The rot. The doctor's eyes narrowed. Invisible monsters. Are you a mage? Is this some kind of trick? No, Evan said. No magic. It is just science. I guess. Look, I cannot explain it. But fire kills them. Boiling water kills them. Soap kills them. Please. Just try it. On one row of patients. Boil everything. Wash your hands until they are raw. And see. Just see if they do better than the others. He was pleading. Leanna watched. Fascinated. He was not ordering the man. He was not threatening him. He was reasoning with him. Dr. Alistair looked from Evan to Leanna, and then back to the rows of dying men. He had been a doctor for 30 years. He trusted his eyes, his hands, his knowledge, and he knew that what he was doing was not working. Half his patients were dying from the rot, not the wound. Invisible monsters, he muttered. It is the most foolish thing I have ever heard, he sighed, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. But the old gods have deserted us. Why not listen to a madman acolyte burn the pews? I want every cauldron we have boiling. We will try the Skyman's magic. Evan nodded, stepping back. Thank you, Doctor. They left the temple. The sun had almost set, and the first stars were appearing in the purple-black sky. They walked in silence for a long time, heading back toward the palace. Invisible monsters, Leanna finally said. It is. It is a simplified explanation, Evan said, his voice tired. We call them germs, bacteria. The point is, it is knowledge, not magic, just things we learned by trying and failing and trying again, by science. Science, she tasted the word. Like your logic bug. Exactly, he said. They reached the top of the grand staircase. The city spread out below them, now glittering with a few brave lights as people lit fires in their homes. You are right, Leanna said, stopping. I cannot be your fellow emperor. I would be terrible at it. I would complain about the thrones being uncomfortable, and I would probably try to get out of all the boring meetings. Leanna looked at him. I think you would be a refreshing emperor, but I understand. Your refusal. It confirms why I asked. You do not want the power, which means you are the only one who should have it. The catch-22 of power, Evan murmured. Yeah, I know it. But my offer stands. Lyanna, I will stay. I will be your royal advisor on weird ideas from another dimension. We can give it a fancy title. Lord of Common Sense. Something like that. Lyanna smiled. A real, genuine smile this time. It transformed her face, wiping away the queen and revealing the woman beneath. I think I would like that. But you said for a while. You still want to go home. It was a statement, not a question. Evan's gaze drifted up, past the shattered spires of the palace, to the stars. He thought of his apartment, his cat, microwavable burritos, his old, boring, safe life. He felt a pang of homesickness so sharp, it almost buckled his knees. Yes, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I do. I have to. It is my home. Lyanna's internal thoughts were clear. He will leave. One day. He will find his way back, and I will be alone with these new ideas, with a broken world to fix. The thought terrified her, but it also strengthened her. He was not giving her a crutch. He was giving her tools. When you find a way, she said, her voice formal again, I will not stop you, but until then, you are the Lord of Common Sense. I am honored, Evan said, attempting a small, ridiculous bow that his leg immediately protested. Ouch. Okay. First order of business for the new lord. Finding a chair. A very comfortable chair. And a large quantity of whatever you people use for aspirin. And food, Lyanna added. And a bath. But then the work begins. Then the work begins, he agreed. They stood there for a long moment, not as a queen and her subject, not as a savior and the saved, but as two people. Two very tired, very different people, united by a catastrophe and a flicker of hope. The future was not a golden, shining path. It was a dark, rubble-strewn road. It was uncertain. It was open. So, Lyanna said, turning to him, her hand extended, not for him to kiss, as was custom, but palm up, fingers open. Evan looked at her hand, confused. It is one of your ideas, I think, she said. A handshake. A deal. A contract. Between equals. Evan looked at her open hand, and then at her face. He saw the queen. He saw the warrior. And he saw his friend. He smiled, and placed his own dirty hand in hers. Her grip was firm. All right, Queen Lyanna, Evan said. Let us go build something new. Let us show this world how to science the hell out of itself. But can we start tomorrow? My leg is really starting to hurt. Lyanna laughed. It was a clear, strong sound in the ruins. A sound of hope. Tomorrow, she agreed. We will begin. She did not let go of his hand. Together. They turned away from the broken city and walked back into the darkness of the palace. Not toward the ruined throne, but toward the living quarters, where there was work to be done. The journey was far from over. It was just beginning.